Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, you know you can't pretend. The days pass by, they've set in stone. But it's not too late now for you to change your tone. Don't speak. Don't speak. Open your soul. Don't harden your heart. Don't speak. Don't speak. Open your soul. Don't harden your heart.
Hey everyone, it's Marianne from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. Happy Friday, everybody. It is been a crazy long week with definitely lots to share. Hey everyone. Hey Ellen. Hey Lynn. Nice to see you. Hello Camille. Camille, thank you for the great work that all of you guys are doing with the community boards. I totally appreciate all of that. Kathy, hello. Good to see you. Charlie's aunt. Nice to see you too. Hi Eileen. So couple things. First, you read our newsletter, email newsletter last night that we put out where we announced a few different things. I'm still looking to fill about 30-ish more seats on our buses going to Albany. So please sign up for our bus. We are going to court on May 15th. We will leave City Hall. Both buses leave from Manhattan. We will be providing you with lunch and dinner. And then the ride. We will leave at about, I guess, 8:30-ish in the morning. We have to be up in Albany by 1. Court is at 2. That will be enough to get you all through security, get you to the bathrooms, and get you in the courtroom or the overflow room. And we'll only be there probably about a half an hour, and then we'll go back outside and then get ready to get back on the buses and go back down home. So please sign up and make sure you do show up because we spend a lot of money on those buses and for lunch and dinner, and everything has to be prepaid and pre-ordered. So register. The link was in the email. It's also on our Facebook page. That's the bus trip. What else do you want to hear about? 1096, intro 1096. So the city legislation in the New York City Council, we received yet one more sponsor, is Rafael Salamanca. And so I had put that in the email as well and asked everyone to say thank you to him. So please continue to do that. Let him know that you do appreciate him. I hear you. Hi, Dan. It's good to see you. Hello, Laura. Yes, we'll also spread the word. Those judges need to see us in Albany. Yes, they do. So that is intro 1096. The state bill. Let's talk a little bit about that first before our guests come on, because we do have two guests today that will be showing up, Amy Arundell and Arthur Goldstein, who are running for the UFT election on the A Better Contract slate. You can see their website down there below. The email for Salamanca didn't go through for you. You know what? That's strange. Was it the link that wasn't working, or did anyone else have that problem with that link for Salamanca didn't work? Let me know, because I've not heard that. If that's the case, please let me know. Hi, all. Someone is reporting on Reddit that the lawsuit against the UFT election was thrown out yesterday. So, Jim, I'm going to ask you to hold your questions on until the group comes on, because I don't have that, but they will. Let you get that officially. And remember, just because you might lose a motion doesn't mean that the argument isn't a real argument. There's a caution there, and it might have violated something else. I mean, just wait and hear what they have to say. That's not not for us to speak about. It's for the ABC, a better contract group, to speak about. So hang on a little bit. The Camille tried calling both offices, got voicemail. We'll try email. Thanks, Camille. I just need to know if that link is working. Will we be getting notified of confirmation if we signed up for the Albany bus? We still have time on that, Lila. Nothing is coming out on Albany yet. It's still too soon, but eventually you will all be getting more information on that. Yes, absolutely. GM, I had a problem with the Salamanca link as well. Holy cow. Okay, so I will put that up tonight on our Facebook page and re-email that out over the weekend. Thanks for sharing that. I was not aware. I will make sure that's corrected. Okay, state legislation, because I want to get this out before our friends come in a little while. So we were juggling litigation and legislation. Litigation has been very appropriately handled by our two law firms. And legislation we have in the city council. And when we started realizing that this was an issue, that retirees were being forced into Medicare Advantage plans or their health care diminished on the state level as well as nationwide, we decided to try making a bill in the likeness of Article 5, Section 7 of the New York State Constitution that would prevent diminution of our health care benefit. So we drafted legislation that would do that. It's been kind of tweaked along the way by our attorneys, and it had a lot of support last year. We had Assemblyman Zabrowski introduce it on the Assembly side, and we also had Senator Harcum introduce it on the Senate side. Now, there's been some issue here because the United Federation of Teachers and DC 37 did not want our legislation to go through. And while they've both been lobbying, and I need to make this crystal clear, Henry Garrido over here has been sending Odette Tinio with the dark hair here into the state offices when they did DC 37 lobby day and lobbied against our state legislation. Michael Mulgrew here has Bridget Rain basically hounding the city council on a weekly basis, lobbying against our city bill. Nothing new. So we were aware of this. And as we are working against their efforts, still, they then realized that they weren't moving them. So what they did was they got the New York State AFL-CIO involved, Mario Salento, and told Mario that they wanted the bill killed. What did Michael do? All of a sudden, Senator Harcum's office gives us a copy of a piece of paper that they were given by the AFL-CIO. And the letter, the document that we were given was moratorium language. Now, Henry Garrido is not the sharpest tool in the shed, and he surely wouldn't know moratorium language because it doesn't protect him. It protects school district employees and teachers. So who would know about that? Michael Mulgrew, United Federation of Teachers. And I know he knows about it because in 2022, I think it was, he and I actually had a conversation about the Moratorium Act. So they give this language to Senator Harcum's office, telling Harcum that he has to change the language of our bill to this language. And I said, no, I'm not standing for that. And there's currently a bill that does have this language in it. It hasn't gone anywhere in over a decade, and it shouldn't. This language has been around since 1967. It was renewed frequently because there was a time bar on it. And then, if you remember, I did a video on this, I think like in the airport on the way home one day, telling you what the moratorium language was and how this was Michael Mulgrew's back door anytime he wanted. So like when someone says, why did Michael Mulgrew walk off the Medicare Advantage plan? That's because he could. He has the Moratorium Act, which says he cannot diminish a benefit for a retiree unless he equally diminishes that benefit to an employee. Since the employees weren't getting screwed like the retirees were, he could not go forward with the Medicare Advantage plan. It wasn't that he didn't want to, it's that this was a backdoor. He got all the unions as he had promised the city he would. He got all the unions in the city to agree to give up healthcare and accept copays and increasing deductibles and narrowing networks. He did that. Arthur Goldstein, I sent you an email with the link. You need to click that link to come in here because I can't pull you in from where you are. You've got to click that link to come in when you're ready. So Michael always knew he had a back door to get out of the deal. He promised the city of New York in 2014 that he would get all the other unions in the city to agree to healthcare savings, and then agreed to it again under the 2018 agreement with Henry Garrido. However, he knew he always had an escape clause, the Moratorium Act, that he could not diminish benefits for retired workers unless he equally diminished them for employees. That's why in October, when I went to the RTC meeting with Jake to explain to all the retired teachers where we were with this, they didn't understand this part of the conversation. Well, it's a little hard. Afterwards, I went out and talked to the retirees after a group of people in the room from the Unity people were trying to get us kicked out, and they got us kicked out of the room. There was Michael Mulgrew leaning against the banister on the balcony, and I went up to him and I said to him, I really need to talk to you. You need to get me before the Municipal Labor Committee. I have to educate them as to what's going on. I can help you. And he said, I can't go to the MLC. They don't like me there. And I said to him, I don't really like you, but I'm here to try to help you. I was genuine about it. Didn't go anywhere. He knew he had a back door. He left all of those other unions hanging the bag, all of them. And that's why they're not happy with him, because he led them down this path and then left them holding this mess. That's the moratorium. Because if he didn't, and he screwed retirees but didn't equally diminish a benefit for an employee, he could be sued by the retirees. That's why. So this law, the Moratorium Act, was made final in 2009. Doesn't have to be constantly renewed. There's no expiry to it. And so Mario Salento of the AFL-CIO, New York State, came up to me and said, on the phone, he said, well, the teachers like it. And I said, I don't really care if the teachers like it. I think the teacher leadership likes it, but I don't think the teachers would. And that was done at a time when labor leaders had a spine, because there was no labor union leader that would want to diminish a healthcare benefit for a retiree, never mind an employee. Because if they did, that'd be political suicide. But today, you don't have a labor leader in two of the largest unions, and even the other ones, that would have said, hell no, what are you doing? Why are you reducing benefits for retirees? We're going to be retired. Instead, they listened to John Hillslop from DC 37 or Henry Garrido from DC 37 going, oh, we didn't mean to kill them. We didn't mean to harm them. I mean, it was the only solution we had. No, if that was the only solution you had, you didn't think. So they wanted the moratorium language in there. I said no. And, I joked about this a couple of weeks ago where I basically said it. I told him, no, you can kiss my ass in Macy's window. There's no way in hell I'm agreeing to that language, because that's what they've been doing, is diminishing healthcare benefits for everybody, employees and retirees. If you look on some of the active teacher pages, they think it's the insurance company raising the deductibles and the copays. It's not. It's the union doing it. So that's been a first problem. And then they wanted to get rid of the date, 12/31/2021. And we said, no, if you take the date out, it makes the whole bill moot. Just walk away from it at that point. I'll find someone with an ounce of consciousness that's willing to stand with retired workers. Retired labor are not in unions. We are not in collective bargaining agreements. Hard stop. That doesn't end there. That does end there. My apologies. It ends there. We are not in unions. You can belong to a retiree teacher chapter. You can belong to a DC 37 retirees association. You are not in the union's collective bargaining agreement. Under the law, they cannot represent you. So the date, 12/31/2021, is important. Why? Because 2022, the very next day, they illegally passed copays onto retirees and charged them for a year and 2 weeks, to the tune of $53 million. So this is why those dates are important and the bill's important, okay? Where do we go from here? I mean, there's a lot left to be done. We need to find another Senate sponsor. And we'll just we'll just start all over because he basically killed our bill. Now there's assembly bill that's still there with no Senate partner, and I don't know how long it can stay there before that dies as well. So we're still kind of figuring out what we're going to do to handle that, but I want to make this clear. He didn't just screw, Michael Mogu did not screw just New York City retirees. He screwed every single municipal retiree in the state of New York when he did this. New York City Transit, MTA, they're quasi-state retirees. He also screwed every county retiree. We are helping Nassau County, Ithaca, Cortland, all of these little counties upstate New York, who are all being forced into Medicare Advantage plan under the Broome County Purchasing Alliance. This is who he hurt. So now today, he just doesn't have 250,000 retirees. He has a couple of million retirees that are pretty pissed off at him today. So we're going to figure out what to do next, but it's already 6:45 and our guests are both here. So I would like to introduce you all today to Arthur Goldstein, who most of you know as one of our famous bloggers, and Amy Arundell. Hey guys, how are you?
Hello.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
This is exciting.
It is.
We're in a studio. Ooh.
I like this format, to be honest. Let's see if I could change the way. There you go. I like that better. So I want you guys to introduce yourselves. There's a lot of people on already. We're streaming live in 5 different places. And let's see, Instagram and let me go back to you, Twitter and Facebook. We're in LinkedIn and YouTube. So we usually get a couple thousand hits pretty right away. So it's really exciting that you get to reach a very wide audience, to introduce them to who you are, and what you're doing and what you stand for. So Amy, I'm gonna let you go first, and then when you're ready, pass the torch to Arthur, and then we'll start taking some questions.
All right. Well, I am Amy Arundell, and I am a teacher. I am a middle school teacher. I taught in the Bronx in District 11, which is the Northeast Bronx. I went to Fordham University, so that's why I wanted to stay in the Bronx after I graduated. And I started working for the union about 20 years ago. So I'm in the system for 34 years this year. And I guess I want to say that this run was very much inspired by the resistance of the retirees to Medicare Advantage. Now, some of you might know me because I was the subject of a Marianne video, what feels like a lifetime ago.
It was what, 22, early 22?
Yeah, I don't even remember, but
a long time ago.
I remember I was the subject of the video. I don't remember when. And I have to say, because I bet people say to themselves, well, how do you change what you think? So
you were once the enemy.
Yes, exactly. And that's what activism does. Activism educates people. Activism makes people think about things differently. Activism makes you question what you're being told. Right. And so essentially this journey from 2022 to now is really about seeing in real time. I was born in 1968. My parents were activists. I engaged in as a young person, a lot of demonstrations and rallies and leafleting, but to see people organize and win, that is, something you don't really forget. And I'm sure all of you who are in this virtual studio feel that part, being part of history, being part of, stopping something. And the fact that, one person put their self on the line, their reputation, what people think of them on the line, and really never gave up despite a lot of very ugly things being said publicly. And I believed Michael Mulgrew about Medicare Advantage. Being younger, I benefited from being pretty ignorant about the ins and outs of healthcare. Knock on wood, I am a healthy person. So even in my life, I haven't really had to deal with insurance companies or anything like that. I was in the hospital twice for 2 children, and that's about it. And so I believed what I was told. And
you're not the only one, though. So I always tell people, I don't hold that against people, because but look, we were taught as unionists, you follow the leader. The leader tells you something, you got your marching orders, you go. So as people here will condemn you for that at sometimes, and I always have to push back. No, because you did the right thing. When you found out that you were being lied to, you corrected your position. And as Arthur did that as well. And it's important to respect that, because that meant that you took pause. Like we've been saying to everyone since the beginning, you may have heard me say, fact check the hell out of me. Please, I'm begging you. And people wouldn't do it, but you did.
Yeah, and I found out your facts were right. And and I watched, your organization win, case after case after case. And our union leadership never really explained to us why you kept winning, because every time you went to court, it was, well, they'll never win. And then you won. And then it was like, okay, are we going to talk about this? And we didn't talk about it. It was not discussed, except to reiterate that this is a mistake. And, what was negotiated was better. I mean, it's not even, it was really not even just like mild. It was like, this is better. And so I woke up, there were some things that happened within the union to me personally that also made things much clearer. But I will say that COVID and then the Medicare Advantage, which was very much, overlapped.
Right.
Were things that shook a lot of our confidence in our leadership. And it was shaky anyway. And I just regret that I was not more, didn't question more, because I did talk to people and I did tell people things that I was told. And my reputation is important to me. I've worked very hard to be of service to our members and be honest and, give people advice that will serve them. And I take very seriously that the decisions that our union makes affects people's lives.
Absolutely.
And so to find out that, I was doing the bidding of this thing that really was very destructive, was hard for me to kind of process and accept. And then I just kept, hoping that you all at the organization would keep winning, which you have.
Which we have. Yes. You're welcome.
So that's kind of how part of how I've gotten here. And I really, have to say, publicly that you're very inspiring, because it's like real-time activism and real-time model of what it takes to win. And the first thing it takes is the unwillingness to accept anything less than what is deserved.
Thank you for that, because it's not an easy path, especially remember, we'd been out of this game for years, decades even, and to organize to come forward. But we do appreciate that you actually listened and changed your position when you realized what you were being told and told to shovel around you wasn't correct and circled back. So yeah, I do appreciate.
I put down my shovel, basically. But this is a good segue to my good friend, Arthur Goldstein, because I respect Arthur Goldstein tremendously. I always have. He tells the story of me, calling up out of the blue, and he thinks that was, surprising that I would do that. But what he didn't know is I called him because I knew he would do what had to be done because I had read his work. And so when I found out that this person wanted to go to this school and there was an opening, I was like, oh, well, this might actually work because there's a chapter leader in that school who really cares about his members and teaching. And that's what always stood out to me about Arthur, not that he didn't agree with us or them or whomever, but that Arthur fights for what is right and uses his pen or keyboard, very effectively. And he really has educated me about a lot of things. And so take it away, Arthur.
Where do you want me to take it? Okay. I've been a teacher since 1984. I retired a year and a half ago, and I've been teaching part-time ever since. I'm the co-teacher with the woman who Amy forced me to get her a job. It was morning. I had just waken up. She calls me, and it was odd because most of the people in Unity don't talk to me. Still, they don't really talk to me. I mean, they insult me on their little blogs and such. But Amy said, there's this teacher, and you have to get her a job. Like, you have to do it right now, and that's it. And I had never heard from her before. I was kind of shocked, but I was also inclined to help because there was this thing called the ATR, where these teachers they would lose their jobs and they were made to wander from this school to that school to the other school. And I knew how unhappy I would be doing that. And she said, well, this woman is having a hard time getting a job, but she's a super teacher. And my AP got her in our school and agreed that she was a super teacher. And we worked, Amy and me and Jackie Irving, my supervisor, for about 2 years until we got this woman appointed to that school. We didn't give up. And it's perhaps the best thing I did in my 12 years as chapter leader of Francis Lewis High School. I want to talk about Amy a little. There is more to Amy than just this person who was with Unity and now isn't with the Unity. There is another side to her that people who know her know this. See, my dog knows it too. Everybody knows it. See? And she calls herself a worker bee. She called herself that one night when I was talking to her. And she is. She helped this woman who I now work with, and she will help everybody who she can. And she always did that, whether she was with Unity or not with Unity. I was chapter leader of a large school, 350 members. It was a crazy job. I'm not complaining because I loved the job. It became the center of my existence, but I needed help, and I needed help like all the time. I had a network of people who would help me, but no one helped me more than Amy Arundell. And when people would email me, ask me about this or that, if I didn't know, she knew, or she knew someone who knew. And she was always there to help everybody, whether or not they were with her then caucus, or not. She didn't care. She would go out of her way to help anybody. And that's why she is the very best person to lead our union, the United Federation of Teachers. That's why I'm running with her, and that's why I'm supporting her.
And my goal is just to not end up on Arthur's blog for bad reasons.
Or mine.
Exactly. Well, I've already done that. So I mean, when people say things like, well, how do we know she isn't just, like everybody else, or Once she becomes president, it'll just be, business as usual. And the truth of the matter is, this group of people who we're running with, we're here today, and maybe soon we can have others of our slate meet the retirees. But the group of people we are running with are all dedicated, passionate educators who love teaching and love being with their students. And they have a very clear idea of what member driven means to them. And if they feel that it's not going that way, they're going to say something. And sometimes that's hard, but to hear when you think you're doing the right thing and someone saying, well, maybe you aren't. But that's how I know that we can do something really incredibly different and really make a great impact for lots of people, because it's not just the two of us, it's a lot of people. And all of those people are very smart and dedicated and do their homework and will not accept anything less than what they believe in, which is a member-driven union.
Absolutely. And members first, which I really do like that. We've, always try to help educate because of our labor background. And remember, we not only built some of these unions, we built this city. And you hear me say all the time, we rebuilt this city after 9/11. It's, over 20 years now. And many of our retirees have actually been retired since the 70s or the 80s or the 90s. So we have a very good, strong labor background, which was very important. I really wish, and I always say, our organization is kind of unique because we are able to tap all of the people. Like, you see all these people in the comment section next to you.
Yeah.
They all come from multiple different agencies from around the city of New York. They've been retired for different amount of years. They've worked for the city different amount of years. They have experiences that I don't have. I'm not going to be a Michael Mulgrew and think I'm king of the hill and know everything, because I don't. But the people in this chat on the side can tell you that when I needed information or to learn how to do something or what was a process, I can call them and say, hey, here's a scenario. Can you tell me how to handle this? And we pull them in the mix. That is what an organization should be doing. And I think that's what makes us really strong. There's a lot of commentary from active retirees, from the Retirees and Retired Teacher chapter that we helped organize to help the uprising, that were frustrated that they've been somewhat alienated by the Retired Teacher chapter. And that is frustrating because their voice is not being heard. And we've had to tell them, you have to speak out to the leadership. We got behind that leadership. And unfortunately, I have not spoken with that leadership since like December, January. Okay, so maybe that was just another mistake. Maybe that person's intimidated, doesn't have a strong enough spine or whatever it is. I'm not going to get down that road because that's not the focus today. But to say that we helped you and encourage people to have your back and you didn't have theirs. It's the same issue with this legislation. You put your faith in someone and then they don't have your back or they abandon you. And it's very, very frustrating. And it's very frustrating.
What I'll say about that, I think that's such a good point. And I don't put my faith in any one person. I put my faith in the people. And it's why it's so important to talk to people, that you've maintained your contact with folks. You have this weekly place for people to come together, for you to talk about, what you're thinking about and what might be happening, and for people to give their thoughts. That's the way it works. And as soon as anybody isolates themselves from the people, they are not going to make the right decisions, because it's too easy to tell yourself you're doing the right thing, because we're human beings and our minds rationalize for us. And the only way you can really make sure you're kept right is by making sure you're with the people, because they'll tell you. And that is what has happened that is what I see in terms of union the union leadership. I started in 1990. Sandy Feldman was the president for maybe I don't know, actually, to be honest with you. When I started teaching, I was one of those people who was just excited to be in a union. My dad was a UAW member. I spent time on picket lines with him. So when I was old enough to join a union, I was excited. It's my turn to be a union person. And the union really was not present as an organization in my life as a young teacher, but I didn't hold it against them.
Right.
And so, my experience, I guess what I'm trying to say is like my experience with the UFT leadership really didn't start until I was hired to work for the UFT at Central, because my district representative was amazing and mentored me and introduced me to all kinds of unionists who I respected greatly. And, the staff of the UFT is just, chock full of people who care very much about the members and the students, but our hands are tied,
Right.
and nobody really asks us, should we do this? They just do it. And then they make us convince everybody it's okay. And we have to believe it's okay, because what else can we do, And so what I see as a person who's worked in a union for 20 years is that the leadership isolates itself from the membership, and then get very frustrated when the things that they decide to do, people question.
Right.
which you can kind of understand on some level, that if you spent your time, if you, like Arthur writes, he spends 2 weeks and he writes a piece, and then he sends it to me to say, look, I've written this great piece. And I say, well, you need to move paragraph 6. And I don't know about that opening, but he's spent time on that. He's invested in it.
Right.
And so you have to be willing to invest in something, but still at the same time, know there might be a better way to do it. I might not be doing the right thing. And that is not what happens. And then when you have particular types of personalities, the challenge makes the person double down.
Well, yeah, because everyone wants to surround themselves. Ineffective leaders want to surround themselves with yes men and yes women. That way there is no dissension. But unions were born in dissent. And I have that video from 1965 from Victor Gottbaum. And he says it, and he was the director of the union. If there's healthy dissent, you're having a conversation, because you're not always right. You're not an oligarch. You're not a king. You're not an authoritarian. Well, I guess unless you're Michael Mulgrew, but that's the point, right? Like there was a time when we were talking about doing a journal ad, and I didn't want to do it. And we took a vote, and they called on me first, and I said no, and everyone was afraid to counter me, and they all said no. And I was like, why are you all saying no? Like, I know why I'm saying no. And then there was no discussion. Like, no one wanted to discuss it, just vote. And I guess they thought I would just go along with it. And I said, and I need to ask you, I need to hit pause. Like, we're not closing this out. We need to have this discussion. Let's go back, discuss it. Why, each and every one of you, I really need to hear your opinion. Speak freely. And they did. And I said, okay. And I listened to each and every one of them, and they all had really good points. We took the vote again, and I voted with them. Now I wasn't the single dissenting vote. And then they stopped at the end when we called the vote a unanimous, and they said, why did you change your vote? And I said, well, I wasn't thinking about what you were thinking of. I thought my position was the right position. I mean, it still was the right position, but it was wrong after hearing their positions and their thoughts that I had not considered. So that's the difference with what makes a leader.
And I don't want to
I was okay with saying,
I don't want to cause dissension amongst the audience, but I believe that educators are natural organizers, because what you're describing makes me think about teaching. And, when you're teaching a class and you think you've got this great lesson, and then you ask the class a question that you think is going to, have this wonderful discussion, and, it's all in your mind about how great it's going to be. And then it's crickets and nobody's saying anything. And that makes me nervous. You know, when I'm in a room where important things are being discussed and there's silence, that's impossible. So it means that people are not saying what they think. They're for whatever reasons. And sometimes that's the right thing to do. I'm not saying everybody has to give their opinion at all times, but what you're describing is what a good leader would look for, which is people who are going to engage in discussion and be brave. You have to be brave. It's not easy to disagree with people. It's not easy to hear things that you don't agree with or kind of go against, you know, what you've been thinking about. But it's critically important to really build power, because when people give their opinions and somebody listens to it, you've exercised power. That is power. And in our union, most of our members have really experienced being told.
We're not laughing at you.
I know.
I'm laughing at the comment. Hey, man in the middle, don't you have any more to say? Yeah, I want to apologize. I was walking around the house trying to get away from my dog's barking. So that kept me off the grid for a little while, but he's here and he's calm. So Amy, you're saying that you don't think it's a good idea to just have everybody sign a loyalty oath and applaud for you no matter what? Because I was thinking of going into my classroom and having all the students sign the loyalty oath and applaud for me no matter what terrible lesson I gave. You don't think that's the way to go, huh?
Well, it's never really worked out for me. And the funny thing that you say about loyalty oaths is, what is loyalty? And that has
loyalty to who?
And to what? And what does it look like? Does loyalty look like
faith? It looks like Mulgrew says, you know, the sky is green and everybody applauds.
Right.
My definition of loyalty is making sure that the organization that I'm part of does the right thing. I consider that my being loyal. I consider letting bad things happen being disloyal. If you're sitting in a meeting and somebody is saying something and you know it's not going to land well, you know it's not going to work, you know it's out of touch, and you don't say anything, then you really you're loyal to the wrong person, I guess.
You're loyal to the caucus rather than to the members, and that's a problem. It's a problem on all levels of our union, and that's why we haven't really got an activist union. And even though we've taken over the RTC is not as activist as it could be. You know, one of my readers wrote a comment or an email, I don't know what, and said, why can't the RTC file an amicus brief in favor of our side on Bentowski, trying to maintain our current plan? I thought it was a great idea. I'm the vice chair of the RTC, elected vice chair, so I brought it to the executive board, and immediately the guy who I really think mostly controls the RTC said no. He just calls out no, and they all decided that what they were going to do was, instead of I had spoken to Marianne about this, and she said, we can support you with paperwork. We can help you with a lot of stuff. And before I even got to say that, they all said, no, well, here's what we'll do. Instead of that, we'll go to the UFT executive board and we'll propose it to them, which is ludicrous because they're, 93% unity, and they would certainly vote it down. And then to follow that up, they didn't even do that. They didn't even bring it to them. And we lost the chance to file an amicus brief as retirees because they just didn't do it. Right. And we also passed by a huge margin a resolution to support 1096. And after we passed it, it said we would take action. I brought it to the executive board, and the woman running the meeting, a virulent Arise supporter who doesn't like me because I'm not Arise, she said, let's table it. And they tabled it, and we did nothing to support 1096. And it's unfortunate that people will let their petty personal politics interfere with what we should be doing. We should be supporting this cause. That is why we were elected.
Well, I will say that I don't know the people as well, the folks who organized, obviously, who organized the retirees of the UFT. I know some of them, but I don't. Arthur, I think, is the one the one person I know the best. Now, there are other people that I'm familiar with, but what I will say is it is extremely difficult to be successful in the UFT if you aren't part of the cult. And so, in fairness to the RTC leadership, I don't know that any of them were ready for the extent to which they would be treated like pariah. And it's one thing to kind of think about that intellectually, like, I don't care. But when you've been elected by a chapter to make things different, like that's your mandate, and then you start working and you have a wall built that only has one way in, and people don't invite you places, and you can't write your own emails, and you try to make signs and you get in trouble, and people aren't pleasant, they're very unpleasant. I understand that would be very disheartening, and people would be trying to look for ways perhaps to work from within to at least have some sort of successes. And that's what I believed for 20 years. I believed for 20 years that I would be able to do more from within than out. And I was able to do more with members, but the kind of systemic things that I wanted to see happen will never happen under this leadership.
The journalist part of me needs to clarify some things, because you're not only talking to United Federation of Teachers this year. So what she's referring to is that when Bennett Fisher, who's the new retired teacher chapter leader, was given an office in UFT, he had to wait, first of all, because they were renovating. And what he didn't know is that they literally renovated a wall between him and the rest of the union.
Well, no, that's not exactly how it happened.
Go ahead, you tell me.
I mean, the first thing that we did when we came in was we started to negotiate for the Facebook page that they had for retirees, which had 6,000 people on it. And we thought, that's our page, we need to take it over. Well, that's what I thought anyway. But they thought, let's be nice. Let's play nice with Unity. And they did. They played nice. And Unity let the Unity woman who had the page keep the page. And they started a new page, which has, 2,500 people even now. And we lost 6,000 people who should be following us. I knew that was wrong, but I don't know. I think they viewed me as too extreme. Because I write these things, and I mean these things that I write. And then a few weeks later, they built a literal wall. And I said, holy crap, they built a wall. And I was told, don't write about it. Don't say anything about it. And, for months, I didn't say anything about it. It was a big secret. They were going to negotiate their way out of it. And then one day I was there for a meeting. I just took a photograph of the wall and said, well, I'm going to write about it. And I did. And I called it the Great Wall of Mulgrew. And it's still standing there. So we need to win so we can tear down the wall.
Yes.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Yeah, I see someone in the chat said, well, what is ABC going to do for retirees? And I think...
What are we going to do for retirees? We are going to support bills like 1096. We are going to support the state bills. We will be out lobbying for the bills instead of against the bills. That's what we're going to do for retirees. We're going to support retirees instead of saying we support retirees and then doing everything we can to subvert retirees, because that's what Michael Mosley is doing.
And I want to say something to you, because you'll be attacked by like the Arise peoples tomorrow. So without mentioning names, I guess you could say in the likeness of lunch meat. So one of the problems with that is, well, to go to support what you're saying, is that in 2001, Mary Pinkett, Councilwoman Mary Pinkett from District 35, Speaker Peter Vallone passed the last amendment to 12-126. DC 37 was still under administratorship. Lee Saunders was there. He actually came to, I don't think he actually came. I think he did. He actually came to testify. Randy Weingarten did not come in person. She sent Sandy Murch, and Sandy read Randy's testimony into the record supporting the amendment to 12-126. Unions have supported retirees legislation, but they couldn't get involved in it because unions don't collectively bargain or negotiate for retirees. They supported what the retiree wanted. They couldn't do it, but they supported what they were asking for. So that's the difference. So I don't want anyone to say, well, you're going to do shit for retirees that you shouldn't be doing. No, your union actually has a history of supporting amendments to 12-126 to protect retirees because the union couldn't. So
I think if the union can stand up in the middle of 42nd Street and defend a casino in Queens, the union can stand up and say, we are going to fight for retirees, whether they're technically unionized or not.
Yep.
And, that is what we're going to do. I will say, our values are not to use what people have built and previously negotiated and previously created and previously got passed in city council. We are not going to use that as a bargaining chip. We are not going to say, who are we going to, who's going to have to suffer for this thing that we want to happen. And that means that we have to build power. And so we also want retirees connected to our union differently, so that it isn't just kind of lip service to, our founders, that is often said by people who are in power at the UFT. I talk to our founders, and I know what I know what we're doing is continuing the legacy or whatever they say. But we don't utilize the experience of a lot of our retirees,
right,
to help people learn how to organize. And I'm saying this because I've learned it in this campaign, because when we have meetings as a campaign and we're discussing things, it's very often the retirees who have the idea or who push us further or who say, look, this isn't organized enough, or they always give their feedback to us when we're trying to figure out what to do. And retirees have come on meetings that we've had with schools. And we were on the middle school meeting, and Susan Herzog, who's a really big part of this movement, she talked about what it was like when she taught middle school. And you could literally see on the teachers' faces, what does that even feel like? Because education and schools and teaching have really deteriorated a lot in 25 years. And so to have people be able to stand up and say, it doesn't have to be this way. The way this system works right now, this system is working or not working based on very bad choices being made, and different choices could be made, and you could have, because I had it, when I started teaching, it wasn't like what people are going through these days. And it makes me very sad, because teaching is a great job. Being in education is a great job. Being an EMT, like these are the jobs people talk about, are the jobs that are the most important jobs, to have. But they don't pay us like that, and they don't protect our retirement. But so when you're asking, like, what is ABC going to do for retirees, we're going to maintain the connection to the retirees, and we're going to listen to them and expect that they will have a lot to tell us that we will learn from and that we will be better because of. So,
and not sell all their health benefits, right?
Not touching anybody's health benefits.
Amen, sister. Now, there's a couple questions in the chat that I've been starring as we've been going along to go back to. Okay. So here's a question from John Peter Sabini. How will the recent failure in the legislature affect the next court case we have? It doesn't. They're separate. Remember, then that's a me question to answer. So John Peter Sabini. So we threw everything at the wall. Because we didn't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We did litigation. We did legislation in the city, legislation in the state. We knew we were going to have bad actors messing with us. We just didn't think that they would try to clobber us all over the place, but they did. But we're still holding our own. And sometimes legislation can take 2 or 3 years to pass, and we're not giving up. You know us better by now. So it has absolutely no effect. One has nothing to do with the other. These were just all little pokers in the fire to try to help us along, because if we found a group of legislators with a spine and a courage that they would sign a bill, then we could drop the litigation. Since not, we just have to keep going the path that's been successful for us and see where that goes. This is for you. Janet says a resolution supporting 1096 was approved at the RTC meeting on Tuesday. What do you guys have to say about that?
The resolution supporting 1096 was approved months ago, not on Tuesday. I don't recall us supporting 1096 on Tuesday. I mean, I go back and look at my notes, but I brought the resolution to the floor to bypass the executive board, which wasn't cooperating. And it was passed overwhelmingly, and that was months ago.
Okay, then here's another question.
And I mean, okay, that was passed, and that is better than what has happened, last year with the RTC. So
last year we didn't even have voting. It was absurd. I was going for a year, and Tom would talk about how we needed to be civil, which is Unity code for sit down and shut up. Yeah, that's what I get from Unity. I've been getting it from for 20 years, since the 2005 contract.
Right.
Sit down and shut up. And they say it in many different ways, but it's the only song they know, and that's why we're not an activist union.
So there is improvement. There was a low bar, but there is improvement in the RTC. Marianne spoke.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are places that we see. The question is, what is the RTC leadership going to do now that they have a resolution supporting 1096, but the leadership of the UFT does not support 1096? So now what do you do? That's the question. And what I want to say is, I am not going to diss anybody, because there are a lot of people running in this campaign across all of these slates that are talented, smart, passionate people. What I'm going to say is, we're the best. But we're not just the best because I say it. We are working very hard on knowing intentionally that we must have experience in the organization. It's not possible to become a leader of the UFT and not have any idea how the organization operates. Because
Right.
what's going to happen if you have no idea how the organization operates, then you're going to end up with a wall. And and so what does that mean if people who don't have experience win? Is that Unity Caucus still has a lot of staff who work at the UFT. You can't purge them because a lot of them are very, very talented, have relationships, members trust them, but they have ties. And so if you come in as a new leadership and you cannot on day one make things happen, you will not be the leadership for long and you will not make any substantive change. And so people can criticize me. I'm getting quite used to it and look forward to it.
So do I.
Our secretary candidate, Paul Egan, we are two people who have spent a significant amount of time in the belly of the beast. And that is going to serve the changes that we need to make very well, because we really don't have time. We have a lot of forces around us, folks, right? We have a pending horrifying mayor. You know, there's a lot going on in the nation that we're not sure where it's going to end up. And I know people have different feelings about that. So I'm trying to be respectful. But there are things that any administration who takes over the government do that we're mad at. So there are things happening there. So we can't afford to have a year of, you know, how do you get, you know, an email out or,
that's
you know,
that Bennett cannot send an email out without the blessing of Michael Mulgrew, and he is the retired teacher chapter leader. That to me is it. But I'll tell you, DC 37 does the same thing. It is a method of control. He has to control what the retirees hear because he doesn't want to lose their support, which he's losing anyway. But that's because they're educated, which is why he wants me to shut up, because he doesn't like that I educate them. But that doesn't
love women who are strong-minded either.
Strong, powerful women. I know.
Yeah.
So let's answer this question, because there's a bunch more in the chat. We would like a special liaison for each borough to specifically address the issue of bully principals. What say you, Amy?
Well, we have talked about creating an organizing department. That's a significant department, not like a little project on the side, but one that would be staffed to be able to make, you know, impact. And that will address the issue of bully principals, because bully principals bully people because they don't exercise their power. And I'm not saying it like I'm blaming them. I'm saying that that's the dynamic. And so we are a union we are a Slate that has a organizing mindset, which means that the only way that we can make things change is if our people, the people, have power. So we are dedicated to teaching the system how to build power in their schools. And, you know, it's funny. I have debated with people as a staffer at the UFT at executive boards. We have debated this very issue because there are people who say that Central UFT doesn't take care of bully principals, and they should. And the truth of the matter is Central UFT can't take care of bully principals because you can't, the DOE doesn't cooperate with us. Full stop. We call people all day long and say, make the principal stop doing this. We have a grievance machinery that doesn't work at all.
Oh my God.
At all. And we haven't stopped any of that. And why is that? Because we don't have the power of the people. And so that is something that will be a day one kind of thing. We will begin anew building power in every single school. And that building of power will then help us in these other important struggles.
I think you're being too modest, Amy. We had bully principals in Forest Hills, and we had a bully principal in where is that school for the gifted, the high school? I'm forgetting the name. By Queens College?
Queens High School of Science?
No. We
398?
Pardon?
398?
What's the high school right by Queens College?
John Bound?
No.
No. Anyway.
But we got rid of 2 principals while you were borough rep, and you were heavily involved in both those things. So you actually have a history of getting rid of bully principals. You got rid
Well,
of
I have a history of not telling staff people to calm down. That's what I have a history of. And it's funny that you mentioned Forest Hills, because I learned a lot from Forest Hills. It was my second year of being a borough rep, and the principal there was widely disliked by the staff. And we were trying to work with the CSA, and we were trying to work with the principal, and the staff was very unimpressed with our efforts. And so the chapter leader, without any discussion with us, did his own vote of no confidence. And it was 100%. And it became a news story. And that's when I learned, like, that's when it all came together, that if you have 100% of the staff who say we don't believe in the principal, that principal will be gone sooner or later, because there's no way a principal who does not have the support of the staff can be successful. And they were just fed up enough that they didn't care if the principal knew that they couldn't stand him. They were done with that. And so I didn't go in and say to all of them, now, we're working with people and this is going to be okay. I went in and said, okay, well, 100% no confidence. What are we going to do next? And what resources of the Queensboro office can I offer to help build the movement you have started? And we have, when I was borough rep of Queens, we actually got rid of a principal almost every year, because, if staffs came together, then we supported it. And that is an organizing mindset. And our current leadership is basically made an agreement, a gentleman's agreement with management that, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and we'll control the people. We'll control the people. And that has been very detrimental to us.
We just lost Arthur.
Where did Arthur go?
I don't know. All of a sudden we got bigger. I'll text him. I'm going to put another question up for you that you can answer. So let's see.
I'm going to turn on the light in this room.
It's getting dark by you.
Yeah, it's getting dark.
Oh, Arthur's coming back. There he is.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't say it was Townsend Harris, Amy.
Yes.
Oh, Townsend Harris. Yes.
I was looking it up and I pressed the wrong button and got kicked out. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that was actually before I became borough rep. But again,
Okay.
What happened to Townsend Harris is that the students did a sit-in.
I remember.
And so, like, things were out of control. And so sometimes you got to let things get out of control so that people stand up for themselves. And then the powers that be have to figure out, particularly in a school system, you cannot have students protesting. So that I didn't. All right.
So Montauk Mania, go ahead.
Some currents have expressed to me a distrust of ABC because of your past ties to Unity. I explained to them ABC is not involved with them. These two people are leaning toward a rise.
We have some issues with the rise in the RTC. One is that Retiree Advocate, with whom I ran and who I really, really pushed very hard, relentlessly, I would say, for months. There were 12 people who were originally in the group, and one of them passed. And then there were 11 people. And these 11 people, after recruiting 300 of us to run with them, they decided to align with Arise, and they didn't give any of us a vote. I'm the vice chair, and I didn't get a vote, and I was very upset by that. I'm still upset by that. That is fundamentally undemocratic. It's very unity, and to lose the possibility to support, create an amicus with you and support our cause because the person who brought it up is from ABC, and to fail to support 1096 because the person who brought it up is from ABC. That's crazy. I mean, I don't love Unity. If Unity can find $10,000 each for the paraprofessionals, I absolutely support it. I'm not going to vote no because Unity brought it up. I mean, I would much rather that they gave them a raise, a pensionable raise, when they had $450 million to do that. But if having their asses kicked 3-1 told Unity, we better do something for these people. If they can do it, I'm all for it. But when we win, we're going to get the paras a real raise. We're going to do the right thing, which is what Unity could have and should have done last year. And that's why they lost to fixed para pay. And they talk about para power. Fixed para pay is para power. Para power is established by beating Unity. And member power, further member power, will be established by further beating Unity. And we're ready to do it. And we have really qualified people. You're looking at one of them in the center now. She's taking my center square. I'm sad about that, but she needs to be president of the UFT.
I mean, one thing I would say about ABC for people who are leaning toward Arise is that we have an incredibly diverse slate. We have 120 paraprofessionals running with us. We have a significant number of retirees running with us. We have representatives from other chapters running with us. We have a variety of races and religions and, hair colors. This slate, we are more prepared in the moment to lead. And there is going to be a tremendous amount of space created for people in Arise to speak, to say their truths, to bring their ideas to us and to the members, or bring their members' ideas to the executive board. So when people are thinking about, well, which will I choose? I would just like people to understand that we can run the union. We have the ability to run the union. It keeps me up at night, but we have it. And Arise doesn't have that level of experience, but because of the commitment our slate has to democracy and to member power, they are going to learn. They're not going to be kept out, which is what Unity does. It keeps everybody out. We're going to build leadership wherever we can build it. We're not going to decide who gets, bless you. We're not going to decide who gets to be a leader and who doesn't. And so that's what I would say to anybody in Arise or voting for Arise, that we are not Unity. I understand why you would be skeptical. I hope that you come to meetings. We have meetings every night and listen to people and ask hard questions.
Right.
And that's how you'll figure out whether or not I'm still Unity. But I know for a fact that Michael Mulgrew would never sit in a meeting like this, ever.
No. He won't. He doesn't. The questions are rigged from your events. Like they're seated in their audience. He'll only choose the questions that he wants to answer, not the hard questions. And there's a lot of hard questions. Doesn't want to face anyone with confrontation. It's frustrating. And I do this on a weekly basis. Like I will sit here for 2 hours if I have to till every question is answered. And sometimes I miss a few and they message me and they'll say, like, I'm literally feeding this into 5 different social media portals. And you could see all the questions on the side screen. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we can't answer as they're flying through, but I star them and I'm going to go back and try to pull some more in. But there will be a way, and you can mention it at the end, about how people can get in touch with you, because there are questions that you're going to want to answer, or people do want to know because you want their vote and you want them to be knowledgeable. And this question where, your past ties to unity, all that means is that they were once part of a group that they believed in. However, they learned that what they were being told and told to share with others wasn't true, and that you should accept and embrace, because they recognized, and we say this in our own platform all the time, because if we yelled at union leaders were sitting in these meetings. They were told in these MLC groups, you have to make this vote, you have to do it now. Michael Mulgrew in 2014 told a room of 102 unions, this is what's on the table, we're told to do this now. And so they were under pressure, and they didn't even have the time to take that back. And I think if there was someone there more with a pair of cojones that would have said, no, time out, dudes, like we have a responsibility to go back to our leadership, that maybe they would have done something to hit pause and go back, but they didn't. And unfortunately, because of that constant pressure and that gaslighting, that they just went along with it, and they were promised everything, and they were lied to, and they believed it. However, here you have someone that says, and we've had unions from that time that came to us and said, we realize this was a mistake and we're sorry and we stand with you. And even if they want to stand with us silently, and many of them do, because there is no way we would have gotten leaked the audios, the videos, the documents that we have if people didn't have it. So for that, I could say, Montauk Mania, understand that just because they were once affiliated, or they once made a decision, or they were selling the same snake oil that everybody else was under Mulgrew or Garrido, but if they're with you today, embrace that, because there's still a whole bunch of others that are still selling that snake oil. They're not listening to the message. And it shows that here you have a leadership. You have Amy and you have Arthur, who listened to something I said and not just accepted, oh, that's that crazy lady. And I'm sure that they first both thought I was crazy, but then they listened, or even if they secretly, quietly listened, and then they go, dang, she's right. They keep winning in court. There's something more to this that we're not being told. So embrace that, Montauk Mania. That's all I could really tell you, because this is how we've made friends in this fight for 4 years, that people who were once went along with the messaging that they were given now stand with you. And that is
we're educators, and educators believe in learning and growing.
Mhm.
So if an educator doesn't believe that I have learned and grown, well, I don't think they've ever met me, honestly. And I accept the distrust, but at the same time, I know what I did as a union rep in my 20 years at the UFT, and I never, ever denied anybody help because they weren't in our caucus. It never happened. I didn't act like that. And right. I, generally speaking, we had raucous debates, right? But I never shut people down. I never said, I'm not talking to you, hand in the face. We had arguments, but I learned from them. So,
right.
It's a little bit high school when people are like, she was in that group, and
So this question from Mike says, unity keeps power by appointing an interim acting rather than the current president serving final term until the end. Interim becomes incumbent. Incumbents have a 90% win rate. And so you can say, you can confirm that. I know you and I both know the history of this. First, you had Al Shanker, and then came in Sandra Feldman. Sandra Feldman left and appointed Randy Weingarten. Randy Weingarten reelected, left, and appointed Michael Mulgrew. This is how they keep in power. This is why this
100% win rate.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to break that trend.
Yes, it's called democracy. And you want to bring democracy back to your union. And as retirees, we support you with that.
And the members should choose their officers. And that's not how it happens now. The members are not choosing their leaders. They're not choosing their district reps. They're not choosing their borough reps. They're not choosing anybody. 3 guys in a room, or 2 guys and a girl, or whatever, or people who are not guys or girls, but there's very few people making these decisions, and those decisions are not informed by what members think.
Right.
At all.
So here's a question. Will ABC appeal an in-person voting decision?
We're not going to appeal it because it wasn't a slam dunk. Our Constitution is written. Our Constitution is how many pages? Norm Scott will say it in the chat. I think it's 6 or 7 pages. The Constitution of the United Federation of Teachers that represents 200,000 people has a Constitution that has 7 pages.
Okay.
And the Constitution speaks to delivering ballots. It doesn't say mail. It says deliver. And the judge said that because it said that, it didn't prohibit in-person voting, and he wasn't interested in our speculation about how in-person voting might interfere with a fair election. He said basically, well, you have observers. If it happens, you'll use the election complaint process. So, I was disappointed with the judge. But you know what I learned? I learned that is why we cannot just use the courts to bring us justice.
Yes.
Because the courts only look at very limited things. And that's why there's an appeal process and all of this. And so we tried. It didn't work. And so now what we need is anybody in your audience who is a UFT member who's not running with ABC. We need observers. We need people who can go to these in-person places and observe. And the UFT election committee changed the rule and said observers can't be candidates. And so for a caucus like ABC and Arise, quite frankly, most of our organizing, a lot of our organizing was organizing people to run. And so to find observers who aren't running, it's not impossible because I'm talking to thousands of people. So maybe, all we need are like 10 people to do a variety of things. It's not like a big commitment. And that's what we need. And we need people to vote. We need people to mail their votes
right away.
Those 2 things, because if we vote, we will win. That's why Unity has spent 60 years suppressing voter turnout. That's why they won't agree to electronic voting. That's why they've said for 3 election cycles, we're going to set up a task force, and they never do, because they want to suppress everybody's vote but Unity people. So, we didn't win in court, but we're going to win overall.
But even with the observers, if we find the observers, it's still an unfair practice. It's like, imagine Governor Kathy Hochul says, okay, we're going to do all voting by mail. If you want to vote in person, you have to come to the governor's mansion or to my fundraisers or to my gala events or to Democratic headquarters.
Right.
And that's essentially what they did. They have in-person voting only where they are. And so if I were an observer, I would be standing by the ballot box or whatever. But in the next room, there's somebody having a pension consult, and the pension consultant said, "Hey, now that you're here, you like the service I gave you, go vote for Unity."
Right.
And that would override the vote that they already gave for ABC. And it's a rigged and unfair process. Whatever the judge said, it's only on their turf. Employees at the UFT, unless they're staffers, secretaries, or something, they're all Unity. Everybody interacting with the members is Unity. And any Unity member can say, "Hey, vote for us," and probably
Right.
does, just as I say, vote for ABC. And they're getting people on their turf and they're influencing them. This is a really unfair process. We have them worried, and that's why they're doing this.
And
So this
I would
frame.
just
Go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry, Marianne.
No, go ahead. I want to go to the question when you're done.
I just wanted to say that this is another reason why all of our membership is so important, because I'm seeing in the comments, people saying my daughter's a teacher, or my niece, nephew. And we are asking people to talk about us. If everybody on this call who knows somebody in the DOE or knows 5 people from the DOE and said, did you know there's an election? Number one, because a lot of people don't know there's an election. And then number 2, there's 3 slates. And number 3, this is the slate I'm suggesting that you support. And people did that to 5 for 1 person, and then just ask that 1 person to do the same thing. We don't have to worry about in-person voting.
Right.
Because that won't make an impact, because we'll get to enough people so that if they go for their pension consult, well, I don't expect anybody who goes to a pension consult to vote for Unity. Because if you're going for a pension consult, you're going to be a retiree soon. And
But
quite frankly,
you may not know what's going on if you're going to be a retiree. You may not be keyed in. A lot of people are not keyed in. When I was chapter leader, I wrote a newsletter. I really wrote a whole newsletter. I didn't just copy and paste what UFT sent me. And my members were well informed. But I'm not sure that every chapter leader does that.
So Francis's question is, my question is how ABC plans to effectuate all these changes. Like, what is the strategy to fundamentally change how your union is run?
Well, we're going to start by reforming the structures that are in place that are supposed to make democratic decisions. So when we were talking to people to become part of our executive board, on the executive board as part of our slate, one of the things we told people is, being on the executive board is being on the leadership team. Mm-hmm. Being on the executive board is not going down to Central two times a month and eating a hot dinner. It's supposed to be a decision-making body.
Yep.
And so that's one place to start, is like talking to members, utilizing representatives to talk to members, and then talking about what members are saying, and then figuring out priorities. What steps do we take? What do we need to do? Right. And the the delegate assembly is going to be run differently, and every single meeting that a member attends will be a different experience than it currently is now. So
you're saying you're not going to give us a 90-minute speech every month about
well, know that I am capable, but I know that I will not be allowed.
Okay, good.
And I
appreciate that.
And I think that's really important, because one of the things you have right now is a top down. Your leader was literally quoted in a magazine stating, when a reporter was asking him about his refusal to vote for the New York Health Act at the time, that was a couple years ago. I want to say it was like 17. And he said, if I had to go back to all of my members every time there was a question, I would never get any work done. I was elected, I make the decisions. And from what I'm hearing from you, you're saying that that's going to change, that you will not just be from telling your executive board or your members what is going to happen. You're looking for input from your executive board and members. Do I understand that correctly?
We are actually, the executive board is going to make decisions. We're not actually seeking input. We are letting the people who are part of the decision-making process make decisions. The purpose of a union president is to usher through the desires and the demands of their membership. That's the job of the union president. What do my members need? What are they asking? What are they saying needs to be changed? What are they pulling the alarm on? And how do I and the other people around us, how do we use the resources, dues? How do we use the resources of the UFT to achieve that? And so, as opposed to running an organization that kind of does things to try to prove to members that they're in a union and they should feel good about it, while all kinds of decisions get made, the work of the union is going to be making decisions. And then the leadership, the elected officers, and the full-time staff's job is to make that happen.
Right.
And figure out what to do if what we want, there are obstacles in our way.
And
I know that's not like a very detailed answer, but it is a start.
And as for retirees, instead of lobbying against 1096 and instead of lobbying against the state legislation, we will be lobbying for 1096 and we will be lobbying for the state legislation, and we will push to get it passed. Because, I read the reason the state legislation isn't passing is because unions oppose it. We are a big union and we can support it if we have new people leading UFT, and we will support it when we lead UFT.
And we will also be partnering with
your retiree.
I never get the name of your organization 100%
NYC
right.
Retirees.
It's wrong.
New York City
three letters. Come on. But anyway, my addled mind can't remember all those words. But we would be partnering with you, Marianne, and with your organization, for example, when we need to partner with people.
Yes, you've expressed that to me, that one of the things that you wanted to change, and that's a question here in the chat too, that there was a question as to what it would look like, what the MLC might look like if you were in that leadership. Right now, Harry Nespoli is stepping down. He's the current chair. He's retiring from sanitation, the president of sanitation, as well as the MLC. And there will be a new leader, and that will either most likely be Michael Mulgrew or DC 37's Henry Garrido. So yes, I know, my heart be still. So I don't know what to tell you there, but there was a question in the chat, and I want to come back to John because there's multiple questions here about how people can help you. But answer the question about what changes. What your union's been doing to the unions in the Municipal Labor Committee today. And I think you would get also support, even though they couldn't vote for you because they're not in your union. But it would be a nice change to know that other unions who are watching this or whose spouses are still on the job, who are union leadership, right now they're not very happy with Michael Mulgrew. Like he said to me in October, I can't go to the MLC, Marianne. I have no friends there. No one likes me. And so what would that look like when you are there? Well,
in order to protect healthcare, protect pensions, and get our wages out of stagnation, we have to come together as a municipal labor force. Mm-hmm. Those three issues are not issues for one union. That's why the MLC exists, because the whole idea of the MLC and pattern bargaining was they're not going to pit us against each other. Right. And so, I don't know what happened or when it started happening, but that's not happening. And we have to consciously decide as a municipal labor movement to agree on how to advance the cause of labor, not how to keep treading water, not more, buoys to keep us from drowning. We want to advance.
Or not stepping on other unions' throats.
Yes. And it's really, people will say unity. People will say they don't have a plan. They don't know. Well, number one, I know, Paul knows, Arthur knows. There's a lot of people on our slate who actually do know. And number two, I believe in people. And I believe we're in a moment where labor unions all over the country are saying enough.
Yeah.
It's 1920. There's an unbelievable gap in wealth. The wealthy are just getting super wealthy. The working class is disappearing. The middle class is disappearing. And unions are the thing that can save us. That can save us. But right now, we do not have enough union leaders who think that way.
No, we're destroying leadership. Union leadership is destroying the labor movement. I've been saying this for a really long time. So let's see. Here's another question. How can in-service New York City employees see this meeting? They seem to look at which caucus is giving them a $30 raise. So Susan, this live stream right now, we are still live an hour and a half into this, and I'm sure that they have their lives to get back to shortly, and that I'll let them call the end of this when they do. But right now, you can view this live stream on our Facebook page, which is we have a public and a private page, but you can stream this right from our public page. LinkedIn, YouTube, which is open to the whole world. Go to NYC Retirees on YouTube and it will stay there. It's on Twitter and it's also on Instagram, but Instagram closes it out after it's over. So if you want to go back and see this and share it, go to our YouTube channel. It's the easiest place. Go to YouTube and go NYC Retirees and you can share it from there. Will ABC appeal in-person voting decisions? Did we already talk about that?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Serena Mia, did Mamdani contact you? I gave Brian Lehrer an earful about his phony socialism. I heard he sold us out for a Garrido's endorsement. Serena, I will tell you, he had met with me. He did not give me a letter, so he's not supporting retirees. I could tell you he's not supporting us right now. And I think he coveted the DC 37 endorsement more than he did retirees and protecting federal Medicare. That's all I got to say about that for the moment.
But I think that as I'm listening to you, this is the problem of politics.
Yes.
It's in a nutshell.
Yes.
It's like, why is a mayor trading off one kind of endorsement for another when, it's just,
we should be together.
Yeah. It's upside down. Like it's, and I see the point about phony socialism there because, and I was very surprised he wasn't at your mayoral.
He canceled on us last minute. I think it was April 10th. Our event was the 17th. And that was also disturbing and has not contacted us since. I will tell you, we will be making news again next week. I'm not going to make any leaks about that right now, but there will be more news coming out next week about support, not support, what DC 37 did. And we're all waiting to see exactly where the UFT lies on coming out of this, because we know that they've been doing the same thing. DC 37 literally told their executive board that they will not vote for any candidate that is supporting retirees. That basically says there's a them versus us and screw you when you're out of here.
Yeah. And I think at this point, it's a little bit beyond the issue. Now it's kind of about, well, who's the most powerful, right? Now it's not the issue. It's you've hurt my feelings, or
there's more audio coming out about that too. It's they don't like that. They feel we're too powerful. They don't like we're political. They don't listen. We are the largest voting bloc in the state, and it's about time. that this, again, this sleeping giant that retirees were got waken up. DC 37 Retirees Association used to be a very powerful force, and over the decades, they just got lazy and complacent. Not anymore. We're going to make sure that retirees, as an organization of retirees of all different backgrounds, of all different retiree organizations, all different agencies, all different ages, come together as one. And that will, I think, create a situation where unions and elected has to recognize us. That way, there is never a situation again where some ill-advised scheme is given to labor leaders, young labor leaders, to steal from their retired unionists. That will never happen again under my watch. And I'm going to make sure that whoever takes over this job when I am no longer doing it remembers that they have to stay awake and guard what a retired labor person had earned and paid for.
Because unless there are significant changes, this threat is still incredibly real. And I say this sometimes when I go to schools when people are struggling with their principles, right? And I'm thinking about this when I think about what happened in Albany with the state bill, which is that sometimes you have to organize and challenge so that people show up as who they really are.
Right.
And once they do that and everybody sees it, it's a game changer. So that's so what you said about killing this bill, that's a state bill. Now millions of people can see what's important to particular labor leaders in the city of New York.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no way that anybody can say that they care about retired people, which honestly, I never believed would happen, especially at the UFT, because the retirees are a voting bloc and have been for 60 years, which is why they vote. That's why UFT has given retirees the vote, was because retirees kept unity afloat. Right. And then when this happened, everybody was like,
they were betrayed.
He's going to piss off the retirees
that vote in a larger number than his active workers do.
It can't be true. And that's why we kind of believed what he was telling us, because it's like he could not be that short-sighted, and he was. Yeah. He was.
So Mike wants to know, can retirees be observers? Yes. Or will if loud? How do they contact you? Because I do want to put that in here.
Okay. I am Amy Arundell, UFT @gmail.com.
So I'm going to ask you to check the chat, to check the ticker down at the bottom in a second. Whoops. Is that
Amy Arundell, UFT @gmail.com. So if anybody can observe for us, that would be amazing. Okay. Amazing. So just email and we'll
let's go back to questions. Thank you, Mike, for that. So that's how you can get in touch with her. Teacher New York 1985 says, can ABC hold an event for in-person voting?
This is the trick that they're playing, which is we can't use union resources. We can't hold events at union places. And we don't have very much money at all. But I want everyone to know that you actually don't necessarily need a lot of money if you have people, because Unity is spending a lot of money, but they're not talking to anybody. So I do want to say that. But so it's not really possible. We also could not get the vendor to come to the event. It would be likely blocked, and we just don't have the bandwidth to challenge all of that.
Ray, the same thing.
Hi, Ray. You're so kind, Ray. Ray and I worked in Queens together. Yes, Ray, just email me, but not at UFT. And that will be great, because you can do it at the Queens office, because there are days where the borough offices. There will be in-person voting at the borough offices.
I'm urging ABC to hold an in-person voting event where we go to a mailbox or post office and send in our ballots.
It's a good idea. We have some in-person events coming up. If you go to our website, A Better Contract, if you're on any social media, we are there, A Better Contract. And so the ones that are going to be in May, we're going to suggest that people bring ballots. But, you know, that's a good idea too.
What about the sudden change in the business that counts the votes? Please comment on that.
Well, it's incredibly suspicious. AAA, I'm sure you all know probably more about AAA than I do, but AAA has been around for a very long time, and it's done it's well known for doing, I think, most union elections in New York City. And when they lost the para election and the retiree election, they created the narrative that AAA made mistakes that caused the loss.
Because they can't possibly do anything wrong ever. It's inconceivable. And if they didn't win, it must be somebody else's fault.
So
that's leadership 101. Of course.
So they got rid of AAA and they hired Global something or other. If you haven't gone to Educators of New York, that's a great blog site, EONYC. Maybe I think Daniel, there he is.
Yeah,
he put it in the chat. The Wire Educators.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a really good article. Daniel did, analyzing this very young company. It's only been around for 5 years, and it seems to be kind of the kind of company that hedge fund people just give money to create a business. So we have no idea. We don't know how well they're going to do.
Nor did the election committee. This stuff that Daniel wrote, it was not shared with them when they were asked to vote on this new company. They voted on a new company, but they knew nothing about it. And also, our election committee is dominated by Unity, and they will vote for whatever they're told to vote for, no matter what. This is another anti-democratic process.
Gotcha. So there's another question in here from Doug. Doug says, who does a UFT member call when they do not receive their ballot? UFT Central was useless in the last 2 elections, and helping these members just another way to suppress the vote.
You have to call the vendor. And I don't have the number handy, but
let's do that. Why don't we do that when your ballots come out? When your ballots come out, you and I and Arthur need to do a video like we did for Bennett to show people how to vote and how to get that ballot in properly and get it in. So let's prepare that before.
People can also be sent to these events. So it would be really great if people went to these events and voted in person for us. But yes, we should do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know that your election has had some controversy, that there's been a smear campaign, not just about you and also Arthur, but also me. I get lumped in the same kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. But I keep trying to tell the people on our page that this is a smear campaign and that they have to do this because honestly, have you ever heard Unity members ever talk about our organization, New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees, all of our wins, why we've won, that what has obviously been done to us has been illegal multiple times for a judge to stop it, put injunctions, or tell the city, no, you can't do this. So I want to make that clear. Like when they were saying about me last year, they even said this year I'm a Trojan horse. They took my photos off the internet. They put them on a poster with a Palestinian flag. They told me I was anti-Israel, even though I have a little percent of Jewish in me. It didn't really matter. They were smearing me anyway. But this is where they go, is that they have to attack your race or your religion or your belief system, even though all of you who know me for 4 years know I don't share my politics with you in this page. And everyone here, like there's that kind of saying that like opinions are like, whatever.
Yes.
And everybody's got one.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
everybody does. And you should have your own opinion, but that opinion shouldn't affect the organization. And I think what an Arthur has known me for a very long time is he knows the balance. You guys know the balance that I have here. I have everyone on the left, on the right, in the middle, and in between. And we choose to keep our politics out the door. So there's one question in the chat, and then I'm going to leave up to you however you want to handle questions. But I want people to know that you are a good-hearted person. The assurance that you've made to our organization that retirees would be protected and not be on the chopping block or the serving platter under your administration. So the smear campaigns I've been urging people to not listen to because they're regurgitating the same smears that they made about me, they made about you, they made about Arthur, they made about Migda from the Paras, Marie from the Paras. They were absolutely ugly. But if they have to attack you, they're not attacking the issue. And that's because they can't. So they have to do something. They resort to attacking you. This is childish behavior. And for teachers, to me, it's despicable because they should have known the difference. Look, if Unity ever did anything that you and Arthur had done and looked through the facts, they would have recognized that they're being lied to. They don't want to open their eyes because then they would maybe think that they were foolish, or I don't think that's foolish, though. I think, and I get called Pollyanna quite a lot because I believe politicians and I shouldn't be believing them all. And I want to believe them because they really sound believable. I want to believe everyone that says I'll support you. I want to believe a lot of things. But then I am one of those people that I will start with trust. You have to earn my trust, but I do come to you trusting. Look, we got behind someone who told us that she would support us. And then when she got elected, she ghosted us and she bit a cop. And now we named her Jaws. And we recognize that sometimes people will swear to you and tell you something and then not be who they say they are. And that she couldn't even face me or talk to me. In these times, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we're able to talk to people of all different backgrounds, all different ages, and all different ideologies. And we bring them together. And I think that's what makes us most powerful. So there's one question here I'll put up is, and because this one keeps coming up, is I wish people would listen instead of thinking you called Jews evil. So very sad. And I'm appreciative, Anne, that you've posted this because this is frustrating to me that people keep repeating the big lie. It's like Henry's big lie, Michael's big lie, that Medicare Advantage is better than just, we didn't sell you out. We did what we had to do. No. So Amy, I'm going to give you the microphone to say what you want to say about that.
Well, I am not anti-Semitic, and I have never called a Jewish person or Jewish people evil. I am in the kind of uncomfortable position that before I decided to run for anything, people were taking screenshots of things that I were posting that were personal. I wasn't doing that, posting those things as a part of an organization or on behalf of anyone. My Facebook page does not indicate that I work for the UFT. So it is a personal page. So I have never in the history of my time at the UFT ever talked about my politics in the course of the job. And I don't believe in that. And I know, because I've met a lot of people in 20 years, that we have a very, very diverse membership.
Right.
With all kinds of different opinions about all kinds of things. And I want us to come together around what we can agree on and try to put aside the things we don't agree on, because a lot of the things that we don't agree on don't necessarily impact our daily lives of, in New York City, in a union, what we have to do as educators. So I have never called anybody anything, never have done that at work, ever. And I defy anybody to find anyone who would say that. What people are being told is not true. And I will say that the biggest lie is that I tried to interfere with a resolution regarding October 7th. And what actually happened is that I was trying to make the resolution broad enough that we could get support across the diversity of our membership.
Right.
Because the issue is very polarizing and people feel strongly on all sides of it. And so if we want to make a statement about something, we have to figure out the statement to make that everybody can get behind. And so that is the conversation that was had about that resolution.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, and it had nothing to do with what I think or believe. It had to do with actually saying, if people think this is a resolution that is important and they want it to be passed, then it has to be written in such a way that everybody can get behind it. So that was the debate. It made some people very angry. And I had people in the leadership of the UFT, weirdly unbeknownst to me, who had very strong feelings about me and would have rather that I not work at the UFT. And
Right.
so there were lies told that actually impacted my livelihood. They were lies.
Right.
And, I stand by my values, and I know who I am, and I know what I think, and I know how I act. And so I can say unequivocally, I'm not anti-Semitic. I can say unequivocally, I'd never push my personal politics at work. I would not do that in any position that I held at the UFT. I would not utilize being president. We're talking about a member-driven organization. So it doesn't really matter what I think.
Right.
It matters that.
Let me jump in. I'm sorry, because when people ask, are you a good teacher? It's like a loaded question. And I will say something like, well, I hope I'm a good teacher. I try to be a good teacher, but I never say I'm a good teacher because I can't judge that if I'm a good teacher. If a student says I'm a good teacher, that's really great to hear. If my supervisor, who is not crazy, by the way, and that's why I respect her, if she says I'm a good teacher, and I mean, that means a lot to me. The best observation I ever had was when my former principal, Musa Ali Shama, he sat in the trailer, watched me teach, and they were leaving, and he said to me, those kids love you. And that was the best observation I ever had. I'll never forget. He never wrote it up, and I don't even care. But it's what other people say about you, I think, more than what you say about yourself. And Amy's in a funny position having to answer a question like that. So let me answer the question for her, because, the name Goldstein is not particularly Irish or anything. It's a pretty Jewish name. I know because when I was a little kid, my parents told me that I was Jewish when I think I grew up in a kind of anti-Semitic neighborhood. And I said, why can't we be Catholic like everybody else? And that made them send me to religious school for like 12 years. It was a big mistake. But I'm Jewish. I know what it is to be Jewish. I know what it is to live with anti-Semitism. I've known Amy for, 15 years, over 15 years. We've been in constant touch. We're texting each other all the time. Sometimes we disagree. Sometimes we agree. But there is no trace, not one hair of anti-Semitism in Amy Arundell. If there were, I would not talk to her. I would not run with her. I would not associate with her. I would not affiliate with her. as a unionist, if I had to, I would represent her. But I wouldn't be friends with her. Amy is absolutely not anti-Semitic. She wouldn't be friends with me. I don't think. I mean, to the extent we know each other, if she were anti-Semitic, and it's offensive to hear people say that. It's offensive to.
Yeah.
This is a very polarizing issue, and that's why I personally don't even talk about it. I don't even talk about it because I know in my building we have Jewish teachers who feel strongly. We have Muslim teachers who feel strongly, and I don't want to get involved in that particular thing.
Right.
I want to do my job as a representative and help anybody and everybody. And that's what Amy wants too. We need to represent everybody, kind of like what you do. That's why we run what we call a bread and butter platform. We're going to represent to improve conditions for members, to improve conditions for working teachers, to get rid of scripted lessons, to give teachers more independence in planning, to get rid of meetings that go on forever and accomplish nothing. We are going to find out what members need and want, and that's what we're going to represent. And I can tell you that Israel and Palestine are not going to be a huge factor in what we're doing. Yeah, I'm just reading this. Amy is not running for president of the United States, nor am I. She's running for president of UFT to improve our jobs. Thank you for that comment. That's a great comment. I wish I had thought of saying that.
I also want to address this because I've learned this listening to people who care very much about the issue and, had enough courage to reach out to me and say, are you going to be able to protect students and teachers from anti-Semitism because of your personal politics? And what I want to say without a shadow of the doubt, I'm not afraid to say difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
And what has happened since October 7th in the Department of Education is pandering. People just telling people what they want to hear, but not actually doing anything to actually improve conditions. And I know how to do that. And if I was the president of the UFT when October 7th happened, rest assured it would have been a different conversation, particularly as it pertains to our schools and students.
Well, I think he wanted to control that on purpose because he was trying to be divisive. If the more of you have a voice, that's what he's trying to suppress in all of the things that he's doing. If you have more people on resolutions or more people speaking your opinions, it's more people getting involved. And that's the last thing he wants, because then he risks maybe not being in control.
And it's really disrespectful to the members of this union that Unity Caucus is calling me names and telling people that they're not going to be safe if I become the president. That is not in the interest of you. That is a lie. And if you are a retired person who supports Israel and you're saying to yourself, I can't vote for Amy because I won't be safe, you're voting against your interests.
Yeah, we're already not safe. They're trying
you're not safe. You're unsafe until somebody better gets into this position.
Mm-hmm.
And you aren't safe as Jewish people, because there's people, they don't do anything. There was just a whole thing 2 weeks ago because the Department of Education would not approve religious observance for the Friday, which was the day before, or the day before the evening of the first night of Passover. And there was a memo sent by the Department of Education saying, we're not going to approve this day. What did the union do about that? Did you get an email about it? Did anybody you know get an email about that? Did Michael Mulgrew stand up and say, this is an outrage? How can you do this? He didn't say anything. And I know for a fact that a single member, because of his determination, got a meeting with the Office of Labor Relations. It didn't change anything, but he didn't get any help from the UFT to get that. And so people are being blinded. They're being blinded. It's a distraction. And I will talk to anybody. I have offered to meet with people. I have had many conversations with individuals about this. And I'm not afraid to have a hard conversation. But you are not, this leadership doesn't care about you. They don't care about Israel, honestly. They only care about their own power. And so they're doing this. Notice they can't smear me on anything.
No.
2 things.
Me neither.
Exactly. My personal politics and my temper, which I'm working very hard on. Those are the 2 things.
Well, they say the same thing about me, and they say a lot of other nasty things about me, but I am okay with my attitude, to be quite honest with you. My argument is Mulgrew tried to kill me and all of my retirees. And what they're doing is they're angry at my reaction to their action. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm just not. And you shouldn't either. So if they're doing something that's wrong, I'm going to keep saying it and I'm going to call it out. Look, we started a debunking bullshit page on our website because of Michael Mulgrew. I have debunked his bullshit more than I've debunked Henry Garrido's. We literally call them the blue machine because they are like just churning junk out of their basement, and it was nonstop, you know? So you have like Fuji Vice here saying that you weren't addressing something. I'm going to say something to Fuji Vice that I just put back in the chat because this is a common complaint. How do you explain or justify your time with Unity? So Fuji, if Amy wants to re-answer that question, she's already addressed it. And you can go back and rewatch this video because they're literally here talking for 2 hours so that you hear everything. This was addressed. And I'm going to address this because I think it's important for all of you to hear this. Again, people who were in an organization who were following a leader. Look, DC 37, United Federation of Teachers, the unions, the 102 unions in the Municipal Labor Committee, they make these decisions in there. Michael Mulgrew made decisions, gives it to his chapter leaders. The chapter leaders distribute stuff. If you've been watching in the last 2 months, what happens? Michael Mulgrew has been sending emails out to the retirees, right, Arthur? Did Michael Mulgrew send a series of emails out to active workers saying what he told the retirees that they should have been aware of? No. He left that to the chapter leaders to distribute, because he didn't want them to know what the heck was going on, because there would be an uprising if they did know. This is control. So why did it take some time for some people to walk away from whatever position that they were attached to, or Amy to walk away from a position that she was attached to in theory with the union? So if she was in Unity and Michael Mulgrew is her leader, my DC 37, Henry Garrido, Lillian Roberts, they were my leaders. I should be listening to my leader. They're supposed to lead us in the right direction because they're the leader. So you're believing it. And then all of a sudden, as Amy said before, and please, Fuji Vice, please roll this video back on YouTube and go back, because I see you're on YouTube. You can go back and rewind and rewatch this. And there is a transcript on the side. You can scroll and just word search whatever words you want. But when unions came to us as the retiree organization and said, we are so sorry we doubted you. We are so sorry that we just on blind faith listened to the municipal labor leadership, Henry Garrido, Michael Mulgrew, Greg Floyd, Gloria Middleton, Harry Nespoli. We listened to what they told us, and you were the problem. Harry Nespoli called us rump retirees. We were smeared everywhere for being disruptors. We were called the small retiree group, the little ad hoc nothing group of retirees that are just dissenters and troublemakers. We were lied about everything. But then they kept repeating the big lie, the big lie, the big lie. What Amy did, or Arthur did, or some of the other union leaders did, was After we won once, the union was telling them, no, don't worry about it. That's just a fluke there. Just don't listen to that. It's not a big deal.
Exactly what
then
they
we won a
said.
second time and a third time. And then they were like, what is this about? And the union leader wouldn't answer the question, wouldn't explain why the retirees were winning, because if they were wrong, they should have lost. In theory, at least. And if they lost wrongly at the first time and there was an appeal, they probably would have won on the appeal. We kept winning. And so when you open your eyes, or even if you sit in your room and you go, I'm going to look at this crazy Italian chick putting all these crazy videos, attacking me and attacking Mulgrew every day. What is she saying? And just we challenge people. Fact check the hell out of us. We dared them to. And no one would. But then they kept smearing me and they smeared my team. So I'm going to...
And they made up that story about division within your group.
Yep.
That was a smear that they said her group is turning against her because it's a playbook. And the playbook is, distract and attack. It's like, that's when you only care about power, that's your playbook.
Yes.
And yeah.
So I appreciate, and I've said this before, I appreciate you coming on and saying that. We even had another union president under DC 37 come out in a Friday Night Live, just like these people are posting now, and said, I was one of those union leaders in DC 37 that I disagreed with her. And I was actually introduced to him at a Labor Day parade, and he still thought I was crazy. And then several months later, he texted me and said, I'd like to speak with you, please. And to me, I have to respect that, because we've been fighting to be listened to. We've been fighting to be believed. And then when someone finally says, I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you at first. It took me a while to come around. I now agree that what you're saying is accurate. I want to stand with you. Why would I push that away? I'm building an army. You need to build an army. You, right now, if I remember the numbers that I'm being told here, you have 550 people on your slate, 120 of which are paras. You have retirees in your mix. You are building an army to represent the people in the umbrella of the United Federation of Teachers. I will not push you away. You may never agree with me. You don't have to agree with me on everything. Hell, husbands, wives, and partners don't agree with each other every day on anything, and they live together.
And, what I love about this space is, and again, Marianne, you would have been a very good teacher. You are a very good teacher. You do take a minute and say, wait a second, let me break this down. And that is, something I respect a great deal. And so I lost my train of thought because I went off on Marianne. love stream. Sorry. But I've gotten to know Marianne over the last couple of months, and I've just really learned something every time I've spoken to her. And I would never actually try to talk about healthcare. I would only say that I support retirees having Medicare and not have privatized healthcare. And then I would rely on someone like Marianne to tell me what to do because, you can't know everything. And what I'll say about the unity thing is that one of the things that has always bothered me about UFT politics is the way that members attack each other.
Yeah.
And I have never done that, ever. I have never attacked anybody online. I don't believe in that. And so when somebody says to me, well, who do you think you are? You were in Unity. You don't really know what I did in Unity. And I didn't just do what I was told. I did question a great deal, which is why I had a very hard time for probably 17 of those 20 years, because I did ask questions, because I didn't do what I was told. And what I'm admitting about Medicare, the Medicare Advantage issue, is that I didn't know anything. And so,
well, you wouldn't. You're younger. It doesn't
right.
affect you.
But
I can say me and Arthur probably didn't know anything about Medicare Advantage when we were younger either. I knew insurance because I did insurance and pension and benefits for my unions, and represented unions, multiple unions, in helping their members. But I would not have really gotten into the nitty-gritty of Medicare.
And people who are in Unity Caucus are not monsters. They're people who have chosen this caucus because they believe that that's the only way to be active in the union. And yeah, there are some people, they are some of the weaker representatives who maybe only wanted to make money or leave the classroom. But that's not the majority of people who work at the UFT. And the people who have done damage are the people in power.
Yes.
And it's easy from very far away to say, well, you should have stepped down or you should have quit. You know, I have a family, I have bills to pay. You know, those choices are not easy. And sometimes I do say to myself, you should not have done that. But this is the world we live in. And, you know, your life doesn't always unfold the way you want it to. So I would just ask for a little bit of empathy and a little bit of saying to oneself, based on what I'm saying, based on what you get, what vibe you get from me, I would like a little empathy that I was one of the few people who actually talked to members. Michael Mulgrew used to say in a derisive way about me, well, yeah, Amy, she's good with the members. As if
that was a bad thing.
Like, yeah, like that's not important. She does this unimportant job. You know, I was the queen of the ATRs because I knew how to talk to them. I didn't know how to talk to them. I know how to talk to people. And I care about people and I care about teachers and I don't assume the worst of people. And so
that's a bad thing.
I think that is part of the struggle with this Arise situation, is that people are making judgments about people based on their own thoughts and they're not giving anybody a chance. And I don't, if that's the way people operate, they're not going to bring change either. No. Because we have a diverse membership and you do not get to talk to people all day long who agree with you. If you work at the UFT, actually, you will probably talk to more people who don't agree with you than who do. So you can't have an attitude like, what I believe and know is the only way to believe and know things. It's impossible to be successful. And you've shown that, Marianne, because you've set boundaries around what we're going to talk about, because if we talk about something else, we know it's going to derail us from what we need to do.
So Francis, I want to answer this, and I know probably you guys will chirp in on this. I know it's not relevant to UFT retirees as much, but would have been nice to see that fight back energy when we were being sold out on the last contract, to be honest. So Francis, what I want to say to you is, someone before asked about how it is that this slate of candidates works with our organization. So, you know, when we started this organization in 2021 is when I had met people like Daniel and James Eterno and Norm. And it was exciting because they were active teachers and they were really the only active teachers. They were the only active New York City employees that would listen to us. And they're bloggers and they're smart. And we looked up and researched stuff like crazy. And even still to this day, that there's a group of people within this slate that are amazing research people. And together we've formed this like knowledge churning machine that I'll know something, they'll know something. It clicks together like this big puzzle. And then holy cow, we've just like someone leaked a document. We've like pared it down. Like, for example, when James Eterno said to me, in the 2014 contract, we ratified that contract. And when we were in person, and many of us were asking about where was Appendix B. Your healthcare is free as according to Appendix B. Where's Appendix B? But no one in leadership of the United Federation of Teachers had that. It was James Eterno that wrote about it on his blog, which still exists today. God bless his soul, because he exposed that. He and I used to talk all the time, and he taught me so much about what you guys were going through as educators at that time in 2014 that only affected us later. And you guys didn't even know in real time exactly what your leader was doing to you. And under the guise of leadership and loyalty and blind faith, that contract was ratified. And it was only until later, when we started putting all the pieces together and communicating, working together the way labor should and retirees should, did we start to expose things. And I want to say one of the most powerful things that we did, and we asked our attorney in February to file an improper practice. And that was something that James and I had talked about doing from the beginning, and he had said we are time barred. It had to be filed within 4 months. And here we are, we filed that improper practice in February. And when our attorney filed it, we took a deep breath, because that was something I know that James had wanted to do. And that right there, Francis, I want you to know, is the fight back energy. They've had it. It's been suppressed. It's not that it didn't exist. It always was there. Always. And if you knew James, he was passionate about this. And unfortunately, him not being with us any longer, I wish he could see the changes that these people have made in their own union and took their union back. And it was only because that collaboration. Still today, do our peoples work together really, really well and help each other advance what we need to do to protect labor, protect our members, protect our peers, and protect our retirees. That's why.
I mean, I could speak to, because I appreciate all these questions. This is so great. I could probably do this.
I love doing this. I really do. It's so phenomenal.
Great. And this is really what I'm talking about in terms of not being afraid to talk about things, right? So it's great that people here have a space where they're not afraid to ask tough questions. So yes, I was part of the 2014 negotiation. Yes, I defended that contract.
Are we talking about 2014 or 2018? I think
2014. I was a key player in the 2014 negotiation from a content standpoint. Understand that the financial part, the percentage raises, how the money is distributed, this healthcare, those decisions were never discussed with anybody.
Francis, are you hearing that? Because that
I didn't know how the lump sum payback thing was figured out. I didn't know. So
didn't share that with you. Clarify that.
Yeah, right. We didn't talk about it.
It was kept from you. It wasn't. So Francis, I want to share this too, because it's probably appropriate that I do, because we got the documents. Union leadership should be sharing, and there's a contract committee, which she was on, but she was not shared this information. Now, that last contract, the 24, you were on the 2014 or the 2018 agreement contract?
I was on the 2014 contract committee.
Okay.
And so, I was a source of great annoyance to Mulgrew, because my committee took the longest to finish our negotiations and the language because we were thorough. He's not thorough. He likes to get the deal done and then let people figure it out after the fact, which means there's no conversations. You don't look at something from all the angles and say, okay, we have this decision to make or this decision to make. Let's talk about them. That never happened. He made the main decisions, the decisions he thought were important, he made. So be clear, he doesn't engage in any contract negotiation that isn't about healthcare and money. He didn't sit in on any negotiation about remote or PD or evaluation. He didn't care about any of that.
No.
So, and I was an employee of the UFT. So I could not tell people not to vote for a contract because I have a supervisor and I was given an order.
But you also weren't given something to.
And I didn't know. Right.
Dissent.
And so for what we were told, what we were never told about the healthcare swap, what we were told is that in 2014, what we were told is that the union needed to be smart about healthcare because costs were going up and we were trying to protect premium-free healthcare. And so he agreed to savings. He didn't name what the savings were or how much. We might have known how much, but who knows what those numbers really mean.
They gave $1 billion from the stabilization fund.
Right. So that was never discussed. That
$1
was never
billion
discussed.
of $1.8 billion. Just here you go, guys. You can have it. And there were other millions and millions of dollars. And that continued into 2018. 2018 was when we had Appendix B. And I remember.
And I wasn't part. The point I want to make is I had been sidelined by 2018. And he
good.
sent me to
I have been
Queens.
planning to blame you personally for that, but now I won't.
Okay, good. But I was sidelined to Queens to get out of his hair, to get out of his.
But we loved you in Queens.
I know, and I loved Queens.
I
job.
don't know how many grievances I had that were sitting in some box somewhere. And then when you got the job, the district rep would call me and he would say, what about this grievance? And what about that grievance? They never did that before. They would just molder and rot and disappear into the black hole. But 2018 was when we had Appendix B. That was 2018, not 2014. And I was, after Moore kicked us all out, I aligned with Unity for a few years. And it was the healthcare thing. I originally was accepting, well, Mulgrew says we're going to be under Emblem. And I had cancer and I had Emblem. And they were mostly okay with me. So I was ready to accept it. And then I learned more and more about it. And then Mulgrew sent us an email saying, if we don't change this rule 12.126 and screw the retirees, you're all going to have to pay $1,500 a year in premiums. And
you were threatened.
Well, no, it was an ultimatum, and it was a zero-sum game, and it was blatantly anti-union. You don't tell us you'll have to pay this if you don't screw the retirees. I was in service at the time. I was horrified by that. And I started writing about it, and I started really questioning everything. And I started speaking to people about it, and I really came around to see that Medicare was much better. People like Norm Scott was talking to me. I met an oncologist who told me that when she had people with Medicare Advantage, she couldn't put them in chemo right away. And they needed it like right away, but they had to wait weeks and weeks for approvals. And she told me, if they make you pay for you and your wife an extra $10,000 a year, whatever it is, just pay it, because no amount of money is worth being stuck in Medicare Advantage. But I started really writing about that pretty strongly and moving way away from Unity. And I think Mike Sill called me to this online meeting with a bunch of people.
Yeah, I was on that too.
And he said, well, you knew about this. You've written about this. And I was shocked. I didn't think I knew about this. But we looked it up. And I have been taking copious notes at delegate assemblies. And Michael Mulgrew said something like, well, we found a way to preserve premium-free health care for a few years. We've locked it in. And our very smart people did very smart things. and it won't hurt anybody, and there's no raise in copays, and it's no big deal, and nobody will mind. And you know what? There were tremendous raises in copays. It cost $15 to go to an urgent care. Then it was $50. Then it was $100. And they were dumping all the retirees into an inferior Medicare Advantage plan. And it really just tore me away from Unity. He was lying to us. He was just blatantly lying to us, unashamedly lying to us, misrepresenting what he was planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did it, and it's still shocking that he wakes up and can look himself in the mirror in the morning after lying to us and gaslighting us the way he did. It's disgraceful.
Question: when you guys go to ratify a contract, like for example, I'm going to tell you what happens in DC 37. Tell me what happens in UFT. In DC 37, and I started raising this awareness over the last several years, when they go to ratify a contract, they only give you a summary. You don't get the full contract word for word, page by page, footnote for footnote, side letter for side letter. You get a summary. You only see what they want you to see. Does that happen with you?
It's absolutely the same.
So you would never have known all of those details. And I'm going to say this again, sir, because there's still like a few doubters in here. So what I wanted you to know about that is literally after the 14 and the 18 contracts from UFT, they still, active workers, active teachers, smart educators, had no idea when I gave them a document I received in FOIL that showed them how Michael Mulgrew negotiated the value of the things and that they were sitting on the very committees on. There were things that he agreed to that was never discussed with the contract committee. There were things that he agreed to, like, for example, how he says that they only got a 3% wage, for example. So it was 3% for all the titles, but that's not all he got. He was able, there was like, what, $450 million that he was able to give to the paras. He was able, let me say that again slow. He was able to give $450 million to the paras. He chose not to. He distributed it in other means. And when we got these documents by FOIL, Freedom of Information Law, from the city of New York, we requested like 20 years of contract documents. We were blown away at what he had done, or Randy had done before him, that they never told their own people. Why? When they get contracts, they're only given a summary. And this is why we kept telling people in DC 37, which was my world, was you should stop ratifying contracts until you see the contract. Because when you go to buy a house, you go to rent an apartment, you go to buy a car, you don't just say, just give me the bullet point, the Cliff Note version, would you? Mm-hmm. No, you don't want the Cliff Note version. You want the full contract. Because why? The devil's in the details.
Yeah.
Well, I will say Mulgrew's not a detailed person. And so a lot of the problems that we have is that things get written and agreed upon without a lot of details. Mm-hmm. And then after the fact, we fight with the DOE constantly about the meaning of these things that we've negotiated, mm-hmm. because they're so vague and the unintended consequences. I mean, language is a funny thing, and you can be talking, two people can be talking, and they can think they're agreeing on something, and they can walk away, and then it's like, we agreed to two different things. Yep. And this happens a lot in negotiations. It's really negotiations are I don't want to say complicated, but there's a lot of human interaction that makes, you need time to negotiate if you want to negotiate for justice. And in all of the time that I have worked at the UFT, we have always started contract negotiations very close to the expiration of the contract. Yep. So if you just take 2023 as an example, we didn't start negotiating that in real time until probably February. And literally, they wanted the contract done before the summer. And so like the last 3 weeks, they were agreeing to things that they weren't really thinking about. And so it's just not a good strategy. And
Yep.
the theory of action there is it's better to have a deal than not have a deal. So that's why you have to have a chip. If your bargaining mindset isn't, I'm going to use my leverage is power, the power of my members is my leverage,
Right.
then you are going to sell away things, because we are not dealing anymore with managers, management, cities, whatever, who bargain in good faith.
Yep.
They do not bargain in good faith. They agree to think, the DOE agrees to things that they begin to undermine as soon as the contract is signed. It's like they agree, and then they get their lawyers together and they say, okay, what are the loopholes in this? That's what they do. So that's why we have to build power. We're never going to get a good contract. I mean, I see and I understand there are people who have never voted yes for any contract, and that's fair enough. I voted down one contract when I was a teacher, and that was the 0-0 contract where we didn't get a raise, and I voted that down. They actually thought that was going to be passed.
There's an interesting history to that most people don't know. I'll bet Marianne knows that the first union after we voted it down, I think the first union to vote it up was DC 37, and there was fraud in that election.
Yes.
By the DC 37 leaders who ended up going to jail over that. But then after that, it came back to us and we voted it up. I voted no, but we voted it up. And I think instead of maximum being 25 years, maximum was 22 years. And I hit maximum at 22 years. And I was really happy that we had rejected at least the first iteration of that contract, but it was based on a fraud. And, that just never came back. It never mattered to anybody. You never saw Giuliani being upset that it was, it was voted upon because of fraud.
So
but it wasn't as bad as what's happening now.
But I guess the reason I'm talking about that is, some of the comments I'm seeing, I went away so fast. Thomas Reynolds, you're asking some interesting comments that are a little edgy, but they're good.
The problem is anytime anyone asks any deeper questions, you're ridiculed. This is a deeper problem than unity, but a pathology widespread in UFT ranks. And I think this also goes to some of the doubting by Frances, because Frances, she would not have, as most people did not, have any reason to doubt their leadership. There was never a reason that they would have said, maybe he's lying to me. No, they weren't given any inkling that they were being lied to. There was no inkling of any question that they were ratifying a contract that was going to screw them or retirees. There was nothing to tip them off, and they had no reason to doubt. So it's unfair of you, Frances, to be saying things like that, because you don't think, you're in this comment, you say, I wasn't treated well because I spoke out for 17 years. I don't think holds water. I have to tell you, in Amy's instance, she bucked the system. I've bucked the system and was the ire of people because I questioned authority. She questioned her leadership. Bennett just won an election and they locked him in a closet. I mean, this is, I think you're misunderstanding
the truth of the matter is I could have walked away. You're right. I could have said, well, these people are horrible people and I'll walk away. Mm-hmm. But what I will say to you is you don't realize what my voice impacted over the last 20 yeyears. There have been many things that because I was at the table, they were better. Were they perfect? Were they what they should have been? Right. No, but I did fight for people.
Yep.
I fought for people. And I will tell you a story about healthcare. We were at a meeting. It was a staff meeting. And every staff meeting we would have, people would ask about healthcare because none of us understood what was going on. And all of us, not like Mulgrew, but all the rest of us had to deal with members. So members would ask us questions that we could not answer. So we would go back and we would say, well, what's the answer to this question? So one of the questions that kept being asked was, what about active people's health care and the RFP, right?
Mhm.
And people kept asking that question. And the answer that was given was, I can't answer that question because I signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
That answer was given at executive board. And I would watch, when that answer was given, I would watch the people in the room being like, what the fuck kind of answer is that? Sorry for the language. You can't give us anything. You can't give us your theory of action. You can't give us what you're fighting for. You just say, I can't tell you anything. So we're in this staff meeting and a staff person asks about the RFP. Now, this is a staff meeting behind closed doors, internal. And the person said, I can't answer that because I signed a non-disclosure agreement. And I said, we cannot give that answer to a member. That is not an appropriate answer for a legitimate question.
No,
we
and not
need
for leadership.
we need more of an answer. That person stopped speaking to me because
You're probably better off. You're probably better off not
this
seeing
is
that
like,
person.
so all I'm trying to say is it's true. I could have just said, I don't agree with you all, and I'm going to go somewhere where people agree with me. I could have done that. I
Right.
could have gone back to a school. I would have been quite happy. But I did feel a responsibility to try to bring another perspective to these tables.
Mhm.
And on the big things, but he didn't listen to anybody, but on other kinds of things, I had an impact. And you don't even, I don't even quite know, but I know it happened. So I think it's just easier in hindsight. I saw Thomas saying, like, are you saying I was an asshole to you around a contract? Because generally speaking, that doesn't happen. But, the fact that I convince people to vote for contracts doesn't make me an evil person, because at the end of the day, voting down those contracts, we would not have gotten anything better, because the person in charge of negotiations doesn't know what to do. That's what happened to the OTs and the PTs.
Yep.
They voted down the contract, but what did the union do about that?
They did nothing. They voted it down, and they said, well, we're going to vote it up again with no changes. Take it or leave it. I want to go back to something you were talking about before, which was what was the health agreement? Because either Marianne or Daniel or both of you found what was in the health agreement, and Daniel and I wrote a piece about it, and they agreed. They agreed to premiums, and they agreed to Medicare Advantage, and they agreed to higher co-pays, and they agreed to tiered care. They agreed to like everything. They agreed also to perhaps merge the welfare funds, consolidate the welfare funds.
Right.
It probably would not have hurt members the way the things they've chosen do. But I think that Mulgrew and his friends, they love having control of the welfare fund. It's a power source for them, unfortunately, and it doesn't serve us well. None of this serves us well. We have a 500-member negotiating committee. I think somebody wrote about this in Local 237. William Shenton wrote about it, that they could not negotiate health benefits. And our 500-member negotiating committee is told we can't negotiate salary and we can't negotiate health. And so, I mean, as a member, salary was like the big thing. I need more money. I need to pay my mortgage. I need to feed my kids. I need to, take my dog to the vet. I need to pay these medical bills that I'm getting as I keep getting sold out by the union. And we have these 500 people who can't do anything about the most fundamental parts of their job. It's absurd. It's a big show and it's ridiculous.
So I think Frances has clarified a little bit about what she's asking about. And I appreciate the question because she's talking about kind of engagement when I, as a UFT staffer, my engagement with people who didn't agree with union leadership. I think that's what you're talking about, Frances. So we had a CAT meeting, and people in our membership wanted open bargaining, but that wasn't going to happen because that's not who Michael Mulgrew is. And I could have asked for open bargaining, but it wasn't going to happen. And so in the CAT meeting where we're trying to mobilize people around the contract and people want to talk about open bargaining, well, that's not, it's not, there's nothing to talk about. You can stand up and tell people it's better, but it's not happening here. And so I cut somebody off and said, we're okay, you've made your point about open bargaining, but we're here to do something else. And that turned into me being rude and scolding people. And I think what I want to say about that is it's not easy in the big city. Like we disagree sometimes, and sometimes we don't disagree perfectly, but I wasn't scolding anybody. I didn't agree with the person, and I had a meeting to run and get through an agenda. And so I did that. And the person chose to take it personally and make it about me attacking. And that is not accurate. And the bottom line is, if you're going to be a leader in a union, you have to be able to move things forward and deal with people who don't agree with you. And
right.
So I hear what you're saying, Frances. If you're talking about the meeting, I think you're talking about what never gets acknowledged is that I sent an apology letter to that person after she emailed my boss to tell on me. I wrote her an email apologizing that this happened in this way. And then she told everybody the only reason I did it was because I was told by my boss, and my boss didn't even read the email because they don't care if people's feelings get hurt, but I do. Yep. So I do not accept that analysis of me. So, and I apologized for the experience that this person had with me.
Well, and I understand that stress too, because when I have meetings and we have an agenda that we have to go to, and we know that there's something that's brought up by one of our board members that is a non-starter. It's not going to go anywhere. The board has already debated it, and usually it's one person trying to bring up something, and we've had that in our own board, and it ends up knocking the meeting off time and down into a rabbit hole that we're not going to recover from, and it isn't going to go anywhere. And it does get quite frustrating, especially when you're dealing with a large group of people and you know that you have a lot of work to get done. And then people take it personally that their opinion isn't being heard, but it's been heard, it's been dismissed or overruled. And yet still the person it's like they're stuck to it and they can't move on it. And that's a struggle of leadership and running an organization and trying to balance all the needs that you have to get done.
I see, Frances, what you're saying about, the contract action organizing was shallow. And I understand why you're saying that. My personal approach to things is you work with what you have.
Right.
So I never thought Michael Mulgrew would let us have a contract action campaign. He never let us do that before. He never let us, try to activate people. And so we got be able to do this contract action thing. And I'm going to tell people this, and this is truth. If we did not have that shallow contract action team campaigning, we would not have gotten the 50 minutes of remote time back, which was the only thing in that contract that was worth anything, because people got time back. And that happened because enough members were paying attention to the negotiations. And the reason people were paying attention to the negotiations is because we had contract action teams. So saying something is shallow when it is an attempt to at least do more than had been done before, I think is unfair.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we worked very hard to get that contract action work going. And every single month, I thought it was going to get cut off. Thought they would say, no, we're not going to do this anymore, because we were actually riling people up, and we were building consciousness around the contract. And that put pressure on the negotiators. So I don't think it's fair to just say, because it isn't perfect organizing or organizing according to the book or whatever, that it's shallow. I don't personally, I don't agree with that. I agree it's not enough.
It's not enough because we need a contract that keeps up with cost of living. And that contract really failed at that. I'm on Social Security now, and I look at the index that Social Security goes up by. And one of those years when we got 3%, Social Security went up by 9%. I mean, that's a real big difference. And that's not even accounting for the fact that we're in New York, and it's probably even higher here than it is, say, in Georgia, where some people live. I won't mention any names. So we really need to organize this municipal labor committee so that instead of working to sell out our health care, we work to establish compensation increases that keep up with the cost of living. So instead of making less money, we make more money. And I'm looking at a comment here from Fuji Vice. No full-time UFT staffer ever goes back to a school on their own accord. That's the implicit threat Mogul has on everyone there. I've got mixed feelings about this. For one thing, I was chapter leader of a large school for 12 years, and I couldn't always get people to come, but Amy Arundell always came. Every time I asked Amy to come, whether we were on good terms, bad terms, or in between, she always came, and our members always appreciated that. Second, there have been other UFT staffers. Before the 2014 contract, for example, we went years with no contract. And a UFT rep who's now running for city council came to our school and told us, oh, Michael Mogul is very smart and he's going to get you a contract. He came for a Coke drive and he came an hour and a half late and was only there for 10 minutes. So we didn't actually collect anything for Coke. But the year after that, when we still didn't have a contract, members were coming up to me and asking me, hey, can you bring that guy back? Because we would like to beat him up. So sometimes, Fuji Vice, you're better off if they don't come back. If unless they're going to say something of value or help you, it doesn't matter. And the fact is, if you want to get support from the UFT, I always got support from the UFT. I got the best support from the UFT, not just from Amy. And I was a huge pain in the ass. And that's why I got the support. They knew if they didn't give me the support, they'd be reading about it in the daily news because they did that repeatedly. And there are ways to get support if you think, a little bit outside of the box. And, any UFT staffer who came once and was terrible, I never invited them back again because, why bother? I could just talk myself and have somebody there who would say nothing.
I mean, I do see issues around salaries, the staffers' salaries. You know, I am not in this to be, you know, in the 1%. Mogru salary is very high for a lot of reasons. It's various, you know, vice president of the AFT, nice it, like there's things that add into that.
It wouldn't be that bad if he were doing his job. If he were doing his job, I wouldn't complain about how much money.
I know.
Who cares? If
I
he's
just
out
want to
there
say, yes.
giving us a better contract.
Yes.
who
And
cares
I
how much
just,
money he
I
gets?
do want to say that people who work at the UFT are workers.
Yes.
And so when we attack what people make, we don't work the same hours as teachers. You know, we work a lot more. And that's kind of the choice that gets made, and it's different kind of work. I'm not saying it's easier. Nothing is as hard as teaching. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about from a labor standpoint, people should be paid for their hours. And so I'm just asking people to be a little less, you know, black and white about those things, because when somebody is disappointing you, okay, yeah, how are you earning what you're being paid? You know, and I get that. But then to like make a litmus test for me, as if, you know, if I don't promise to lower the salary of the presidency, somehow I'm in it for the money. I mean, I'm not saying one way or the other. What I'm saying is that has to be examined.
Right.
And we have to make sure, and that's why we have Katie Onscott is our treasurer candidate, and our plan is to have a real treasurer who oversees how the union is utilizing its resources. A real treasurer who's like guarding the dues money that comes in and how the union is using it. So what I can say to you is there's going to be much more oversight, member oversight of how resources are used. And so that will be the way that members can hold people accountable for making sure that they're doing what they have to do if they agree to be, you know, a staffer, or they get elected to be a staffer, that you have responsibilities. So I just wanted to address that. I mean, this is great. 3 hours.
Underlying what you're saying is the fact that, correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, I'm the vice chair of the RTC. It's a title that, as far as I can tell, means nothing whatsoever. I mean, what I do for the RTC is I write all the time, but I have nothing to do in the UFT building, nor do many of us who are elected. And we've got these titles of secretary, assistant secretary, treasurer, and assistant treasurer, and they don't currently have set jobs or duties. Is that correct, Amy?
Yeah.
So that's kind of absurd. You know, why are we electing people? And like it was, the worst example was with Migda, who was elected second chair and then elected first chair, and the paras voted for her overwhelmingly, and they gave her nothing to do. They said she should attend meetings, and then Migda didn't attend the meetings because she was making so little as a para that she needed to have a second job in order to make ends meet. And Unity portrays Migda Rodriguez,
Yeah.
professional, in a funny hat. Where is Migda?
Yeah.
Ha ha ha! She can't come to the meetings. Oh, how hilarious that she has to work 2 jobs to support her family. That was so disgraceful.
So what I want to say is to some of these last few questions here, because I want you guys to wrap up and go be with your families. It's been 3 hours.
I am a talker. I want.
Well, you guys are coming back. I will say that you're going to come back because we have a lot more to talk about. And this went phenomenal. You've spoken to people. They hear you. They recognize that, many of the ones that are here recognize that what they were hearing was gobbledygook. But still, I am labor, Fuji Vice, and I am not going to allow anyone to say that staffers don't work or that they shouldn't be paid. We are union. I would say maybe the one thing I might want to intimate is maybe we could work on trying to unionize UFT labor, which would say we're truly labor, but that would be another thing to discuss with Amy when she's finally in office. But I will never dispute people's work who work for the union. And she had already said that the people that are there weren't going anywhere, right? You're not, right? So these are people who have worked for the union. She's not looking to get rid of anybody. What I want to say is never say that they don't work hard. Everyone works hard, and we should not be diminishing a work ethic of anybody. What I do want to say is it's been 3 hours, and I would like you guys to have your closing remarks, and I promise I will bring you back. It's been wonderful talking with you both tonight. Who wants to go first, Arthur or Amy?
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate they came. Please vote for us. We desperately need new blood running our union. We need a change in our union. We need union leaders who will represent members. We need union leaders who will respect retirees. We need union leaders who will not lie to us and withhold from us and dissemble and call people names in lieu of making an argument. Thanks.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
I loved everything about this because there's never really any space to just talk about things. So I really appreciate this space, and I'm amazed at it and all the comments and, the way people engage and the great questions people are asking. It's just, it is a vision of what it could look like if you had people in power who actually care about people. And so if you wonder what it would look like if ABC was in charge, I'm not saying you'd have to come to 3-hour meetings all the time, but we would
I appreciate that.
to create these kinds of spaces where people can really say what they think, and the people who are trying to serve the people can learn. So I learned a lot tonight, and thank you, Marianne, and thank you, retirees, for being who you are, and I can't wait to do this again.
Well, thank you guys for being here. Remember, their website is abettercontract.org. And I think, what did I do with your email? And her email is abettercontract.org, Amy Arundell, UFT@gmail.com.
Fuji Vice, hit me up. We need to talk.
And please connect with her. Those who wanted to volunteer as well to help support the election, make sure you're watching or whatever those things are that you were asking to do, please reach out to her. She will get back to you.
Oh, observers. Yeah.
Yes, observers. Yes, please reach out to them, because they could use as many volunteers as they possibly can, and start doing that soon, because ballots do go out May 1st, and they are due when?
May 28th.
May 28th, but as soon as you get it, you want to get that ballot right in, and then we will do a follow-up video explaining how to vote. So I want to say that you probably get the award so far for the longest guest I've had, because I think the first longest was 2 hours, and that was Senator Jessica Ramos a couple weeks ago. You just blew Jessica away by an hour.
All right.
During COVID, I had a meeting with Queens chapter leaders for 4 hours.
Oh my goodness.
It started at 6 and ended at 10.
Yeah. I actually did that during COVID too. Knowing that people were locked in their homes, I would live stream a Zoom holiday so that we were like cheers. You could come in, you can go out, you can come back in. And I just left it on all day long. And I would say, someone would go, "Are you there?" And I'd go, "Hold on, I'm coming," from wherever I was. And it was kind of crazy, but that's how we stayed sane, right?
Yes.
So everyone, I want to thank you for being inquisitive and polite and professional, and some of you a little edgy, but still giving this team a space to show you who they are and what they will do for you and how they will make your union better, and giving them that opportunity to share with you the vision that they have to carry the union into the future. Remember, they would be the leadership, you would be the union, and together you would go forward. And to have someone that's actually inviting you into that space is really awesome, because you haven't had that in a really long time. So good night, everyone. Thank you for everything. Make sure you reach out to abettercontract.org, Amy Arundell, UFT@gmail.com if you want to be an observer and find out, or you have questions that didn't get answered tonight. I really did try to answer everything that I was catching, but there was like a million questions flying through. Please reach out to them. And again, have a great weekend. You will hear from us soon. We will post again when we will be bringing the ABC team back and then answer more questions. So hold whatever you have, and whatever you don't, email her, and we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend, Amy and Arthur. And thank you for being in our space for 3 hours, 4 minutes, and 20 seconds. Love you.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
Ciao.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. The tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, we know you can't pretend. The days pass by.